Hello. Hello and welcome to Nollywood Film Club. I am Mr. C of Iroko Critic. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I am still kind of tired and my apologies. I think I am also kind of tired whilst hosting this space. So forgive my shortness if I do appear, if I come across that way. Um, I do I do think we had a very productive conversation, regardless of how I was feeling. It's something I actually learned a lot from because whilst playing host, I was trying to sort of flesh out people's characters by providing sort of pushbacks where I could, even though this is one of those topics that I'm just I'm always going to be. I think. I think the speakers on the space are just much better at. They're just much better at this than me. So it's one where I was always. It's not one I can take the lead as. One where I was following. Um, we do cover a lot of ground on this. I think you can look at the trademarks, but worth saying to you though, because I think I discuss it at several points in. We mention it a couple of points in the in the space. There is a podcast of female characters in Nollywood that is referenced. It is episode 37 if you want to go and check that out, so feel free. um Here I give a very I think here we started with a broad definition so everybody knows what we are. Just restate that this isn't the definition. Obviously, there are various different definitions and there are very different types of the topic we discuss. We discuss whether Nollywood needs to be morally instructive. We discuss is Nollywood misogynistic. We discuss sexual assault portrayal in Nollywood. We discuss failed attempts at feminism, and we also discuss good examples of feminism in Nollywood. And then I think we try to summarize with where people's expectations, where their hopes are for feminism, for the continuous portrayal of feminism in Nollywood. Are we going to get better? Are we getting worse? But yes, covered so much ground, and I'm just generally happy with how the conversation went, having just re-listened to it, despite again my shortness. Despite my shortness, I do hope you enjoy Nollywood discussing feminism in Nollywood. All right. So welcome to Nollywood Film Club. We do discuss Nollywood movies every Sunday, 6 p.m. What? But so certain special occasions, we do have a conversation that is on our minds that we want to discuss. And we're discussing another What Kept Me Up article. This one was, well, we're not discussing the article. We're discussing a topic inspired
by
the What Kept Me Up article. Yes. But we'll be going through some of the points that were raised, and we'll be discussing about feminism in Nollywood in general. So I think one of the first things I wanted to do was just very shortly just do a bog standard feminism definition, and we can, like, if anybody strongly disagrees with it, and then we can go from there. But it's just because, like, so when we're talking about it, when it comes to inside in Nollywood, that we all know that we're speaking generally about the same thing as opposed to something else. But like, if you have a slightly different version, feel free to also bring that up, and then so that I'm just doing this one so we're all on the same page generally. All right. So feminism definition, as I say it here, is advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. All right. So given that, one of the first things the article brings up is that Praise brings up. I think it's like
I think she touches it, and she has a view on it, but I don't want to taint people's mind on it. But like the first thing I wanted to address is, does Nollywood need to be morally instructive? So, do we need sort of like moral instructions in our films? I think that's where it's a good place to start, aside this definition, which obviously we have. All right, does anyone want to go first, or I have my thoughts on this?
Pinning the definition. I'm not sure that I got that right.
Okay, all right. I'll tweet it and pin it.
Does Nollywood need to be morally instructive? No, but it insists on being. So here we are.
You know what? True. That's a big point. And there's another part of this I was thinking of. Oh, okay. Your hand
I'm
is up.
here.
Sure.
Go. I'm good.
Yeah. All right. Anika, you wanted to say something?
I will go after Osas. Osas is talking. So I'll let that speak.
Osas says it doesn't have to be, but it keeps on. It sits on being.
Yeah, oh no, I heard. I thought she was continuing.
Well, because you were saying something else. I thought you were continuing to say something, but Oyinka, you can go.
Oh, thank you. I'm of two minds about this. I don't necessarily think any movie needs to be morally instructive, because there is no what's it called, general morality. What you think is right may not be right. I mean, obviously there are universal standards, like you don't kill people anyhow. That's like culturally, across cultures, that's always been there. Kind of. Yeah. But like, I don't necessarily think movies needs to be, but also the thing is that Nollywood is particularly Nigerian, and it's particularly in an African sort of way, and stories they don't necessarily need to be morally instructive, but they tend to be a reflection of ideals and notions that human beings have. So there is no way in any way that they cannot have some morals in them. So it's not like, does it need to be, or is it already embedded in the form of like just storytelling? There's going to be some form of morals in it. But is it pushing? There's a difference. Like, yeah, but that's the thing about Nigerian movies, and that's the thing about Nigerian stories, and that's the thing about African stories, right? There's something behind it that is trying to tell you. Maybe it's not morals, maybe it's something about life, but that's kind of where I am about Nollywood.
So. Thank you, Anika. Yeah, I think that's part of one of my things when I was thinking about this that I'm going to come back to. If anybody else has anything to say, go ahead. If not, I'm going to add my 2 Ps. All right. Okay. Yeah. Because this is one of those roundtable things. You do raise hands if you want to speak, or just unmute your mic if like nobody's talking. Go ahead. Do you want to say something?
Yeah. I like that.
Because you're doing.
I know you're gonna ask me, and then you're just like, I don't know what I want to say. Okay. Anywho, yeah. So I don't think Nollywood need to be what's the reason again?
Be morally instructive.
Yeah, I don't think they need to be morally instructive. I think the only responsibility the only thing they owe us is entertainment. I think they need to be morally instructive. However, there is also something that a little part of me that goes, if you have a platform, and if you have some sort of responsibility to not do more harm, if that makes sense. And I think we'll get to how, while they don't have a responsibility to be morally instructive, I think if we go into the films that we were like, we'll use as a baseline, I think from there I'll be able to expand a bit more on them doing more harm versus and how I feel like even though you don't have a responsibility to be morally instructive, if you have a responsibility to not do more harm with what you're putting out there.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
And this is why we stand Mrs. C on there.
That's why I mute Mrs. C. Uchenna, do you want to go on?
Yeah, I don't think that Nollywood has the responsibility to be morally instructive. In fact, I don't think that any art has the responsibility to do that. I think the responsibility of the artist is in some way to reflect life, not necessarily give a judgment upon it. I mean, there's always the option to do that if they want to do that, but it's not an obligation. But then again, I've never denied that, a lot of my sensibilities tend to be somewhat westernized. From the African perspective, I would say that yes, there is the expectation that any kind of storytelling, whether it is folk tales, tales by moonlight, or anything like that, there is the idea that storytelling is supposed to give a message, and preferably a positive message to society. I've talked before about how I view the kind of Nollywood movies you see on YouTube as being the mainstream of Nollywood, as opposed to the stuff that you see on streaming and the theaters. And if you look in the comments on YouTube, you see people are not critiquing the cinematography or the editing or the score. Everybody just says, "Oh, this is a wonderful film. It has such good lessons." Everybody's saying that. That's all what they believe. I mean, even when people talk about music, even when people critique modern Afrobeats music, people who have a negative tendency towards it will say that, oh, the problem with our music today is that it's not giving us good messages like Christy Essien and Osedibe and other people used to give us back in the day. So there is the expectation, I think, that Nollywood should give messages to people. So that might be an African thing, and to that extent, I think it's a valid expectation. But I will say that it's not my expectation. But I'm Western. I've always admitted that.
All right, thanks, Jonah. Good understanding, like where bias might lean. Actually, funny enough, that this was the other part of my thinking about this is that like our origin, our roots are in being morally instructive, and it even though like I share like your sort of I don't need it because there's so much film that I enjoyed that are not morally instructive. Sometimes they're the opposite, really. They're like, who cares? I if I look at the root of Nollywood and our type of storytelling, it does seem to always have this want to say something, and that will come into um, aside the expectation. I think that comes into the way. At least if you're a Nollywood filmmaker, I think you should be aware of this, because when you start invoking sort of methods used by old Nollywood and you start speaking, you start doing it in a certain type of way, well, then the expectation is a valid expectation then. So yeah. All right.
I mean, if I may jump real quick, I will say that I do want I do want movies.
So
I'm sorry. Let me say real quick. I'm sorry, please. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I do want movies to have some sort of moral awareness.
Can I go on now?
But rather than giving a message, I would prefer for them to ask questions.
Rather than give answers,
rather than give answers, I want them to ask questions. And so,
sorry, Pichana, give me 1 second. I just want to explain to Marshmallow so she just doesn't think nothing is going on. I don't think Marshmallow can hear Uchenna, which is a problem we had last time. So there is someone speaking Marshmallow. I just want, after they finish speaking, I will call on you.
Okay, apologies to Marshmallow. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to add a quick addendum. I just wanted to say that I do like movies to have some sort of moral awareness, but rather than giving people answers, I would like them to ask questions that spur people to have conversations amongst themselves and try to figure out the morality. So I do like them to have some sort of moral directionality, but I don't want them to preach to people and tell them what the answer is.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Yeah. Okay, Marshmallows.
Yeah, it's weird. I can't hear Uchenna at all. I can hear everybody else except
yeah. No worry. We've been there.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I agree with you, Mr. C, when you said that the origin of Nollywood is usually morally instructive. So I cast my mind back to the earliest movies I saw, like Living in Bondage, Ahana, Rattlesnake, all of those things from back then, and even like Tales by Moonlight, like or like adaptations of books to TV or movies. I think the foundation of Nollywood is quite morally instructive, but it hasn't always told that line, which is fine. I had to Google the name of this movie with Jibola Dabo, Muna Obiekwe, Tonto Dike, Dirty Secret. I remember watching it and being so fascinated by it because there was nothing morally upright in quotes about that movie, but it was quite enjoyable. And a lot of people, I mean, there was an audience for it. So, but for me personally, I don't have a problem with Nollywood being morally instructive. Now we will have lines that cross or parallel lines or places where we don't like things people deem morally upright for some other people is not. But I, as a Nigerian, and seeing a lot of how our values that we enjoyed or we cherished from decades ago slowly eroding. I don't have a problem with Nollywood, trying to be maybe even not just instructive, but being like, a mirror that shows us, who we are, and we can think and reflect on, behaviors or how characters interact in film, and help to guide us to what should be, the right way to respond or the right way to do certain things, or encourage us in different paths to take. So, for example, if I was watching a movie today now about the scourge of internet fraud, there's a tone that I would like the movie to take, that in the end, even though it tells all of the truth about it, but you come off thinking, there's, a part to play here as, a viewer or as a citizen of the country, and how maybe I would like to do better because of what I saw in the movie. So I think Nollywood has always been morally instructive. I don't have a problem with it, to be honest. But I guess in the end, like Mrs. C said, the job is to entertain. So whether you're being morally instructive or not, I don't want to be hit over the head with it. I'm really looking for a good time when I'm looking forward to a Nollywood movie. So yeah.
All right, thanks. Atas?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up a little bit on what Marshmallow said as far as wanting to come out of a movie feeling like as citizens you have a part to play. What do you mean? Because that sounds like a PSA, like a public service announcement, as opposed to a movie. I don't think she can hear me either.
Marshmallow, can you hear Atas?
No, dun dun dun.
Oh, okay. She was asking essentially what you meant by as citizens, when you come out of a movie as citizens, you feel like you have a part to play.
Because Nollywood is Nigerian, I'm talking from the point of view as a Nigerian. So if there is a theme that the movie is talking about, and like I said, if it's a mirror that is held to my front, and at the end of the movie, there is a lesson for me. I think that's what I was trying to go for, the lesson that I'm taking from the entire thing at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. I thought that was more or less what you meant, but just don't want to speak for you. All right. The other thing I wanted to go into, and what something the article goes into, was some of the, I think, the way Praise writes it in her article, it's almost like it's worth taking for granted that that Nollywood is misogynistic, and I guess first off, is that a fair premise? I think one of the examples was used was Mr. and Mrs. Do we think Nollywood is misogynistic?
1000%.
Yeah,
Like
right.
Nollywood, Nollywood is fueled by misogyny. Like even when it doesn't intend to be misogynist, Nollywood somehow finds a way to make sure there is misogyny there. And even like Mr. and Mrs. Mr. and Mrs. is a clear example of where misogyny exists from beginning to the end of that movie. The very backbone of that movie is misogyny. It starts out misogynist, it teaches misogynist lessons, then it ends misogynist. It's a travesty. But like that one feels like a obvious example because even at the times when, like, I don't know the name of that movie, was it like 3 weeks ago, where none of the women had any agency. Like it's stuff like that that happens somewhere between the lines almost all the time, where even if they're not telling a misogynist story or even necessarily trying to be, they still somehow find a way where women are only really supporting characters. Doesn't even feel like it covers it. It just feels like they're props, more or less. But using Mr. and Mrs. Yeah, I just don't know what that movie was intended to teach us or show us or tell us other than misogyny.
Hey, wait your turn. Mute.
But if we break up that story into parts, whether the main story itself, which is Incy and her husband, we spend the first, I don't know how many minutes that was, let's say 20-30 minutes, just watching him abuse her. Like that's what he's doing. He's abusing her the entire movie. He's cheating on her. He has, and they don't really tell us when his decline started. I'm assuming at some point in their relationship he was loving because they've been together for 16 years at this point. But my assumption is sometime after marriage. And so for years, he has made this woman a shell of herself. And then at the end of the movie, the way she's able to win back is because he cannot find anybody else that can cook for him. His girlfriend can't cook for him. His girlfriend can't cook for him. So even while all of this is happening and she's quote unquote reclaiming her power, this woman who is living in her home with her husband, they both fix their mouths to ask her to prepare him food. And she does cancel an interview to prepare them food. Is everybody mad? And then, okay, she kicks her out with another misogynist speech about how she's the mother of her children and she knows how to fuck him, even though all these years that you know how to fuck him very well, he was still fucking this woman. Can't be that good. But here we are. So she kicks her out. They bring a house girl in who also somehow cannot cook and does not know how to make rice and stew. And this is how she wins her husband back because he just wants a well-cooked meal. Are we mad? Like, is that not madness? Like, what is the moral
But
there?
we have to quantify that with not just a well-cooked meal, a well-cooked fresh meal every single day.
Like, do you know how misogynist
non-refrigerated
that movie was? Like, even the mom in the story, when they heard that she was cooking fresh meals every day, the mom was like, "That girl is cooking fresh meals for you every day," and I'm like,
Right. Okay.
The mom was like,
All right. I'm going to provide some other sides to this, but I wanted to flesh out an agency part that you said, just so that wait, no, calm down. Yes. So that just people who are not completely, I don't want to preach to the choir. I also want, like, if possible, to bring people who are not completely along with us. All right. So like the agency part, I think and Otaz, correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm speaking for you, but like the agency, why you would call people lacking agency, not having agency as misogyny, especially when they're going to be mostly female characters, is that writers aren't seeing women as full human beings. They're seeing them as sort of either plot devices or things really. That I think, props, things that can happen to it. All right, yes. So that's that. Okay, so the other side to Mr. and Mrs. I wanted to provide is that I remember when I saw this. I remember actually I was coming back. One of the reasons I saw Mr. and Mrs. was people. One of my cousins told me that I should watch this. That it was a male cousin. He was like Insa's very pretty in it, and she's she's good looking, and it was one that I realized that a lot of people had seen. It was very popular at the time. And then especially my cousins and my family members and some of my friends in uni, I don't know if this was earlier than 2012 or it felt like it might have been, but let's say 2012 because that's what Google says, but it feels like it was earlier than that even. But when people saw that film, a lot of the women loved it. This was like their version of the suffragettes. This was their suffragettes. This was and the reason why I bring this up is because is it that for the time that people felt this is at least somebody speaking I don't truth to power, addressing some of the issues that were going on in a lot of in a lot of women, in a lot of homes. That there's a thing where she does with the your husband's cheating on you, or you and your husband are having a fight. He's misbehaved, and I had friends who would they said they dress in their undies, just walk around the house or something, that kind of thing, or they just wear like hot dresses and go out, which is what Instead did. It felt like a lot of people probably would have felt seen or felt heard. And again, I do not know many people who did not like this film. And I mean, back then, 2012, women and men included.
Okay,
I just
acting, and the general story they were telling, but I don't know that anyone should like this film as a feminist instruction or like even a way to resolve any real issues. Like Inse was wearing a short dress when someone is doing something wrong. Okay, like what does that solve? And so maybe
Sorry, just quickly. This is not Mr. and Mrs. as a feminist movies as an example of misogyny. Right? Remember.
Yeah. I just want to push back.
Well, you can push back.
I want to
just give me 1 second.
Okay.
And I don't. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But anyways, you can go.
Okay. Now, ultimately, I mostly agree that I won't call it misogynist because I don't think the people that made the movie had a misogynist bone or the movie was meant for misogyny. Again, I really reserve the word misogynist for very, very, very specific, like an actual hatred of women, not just the idea that, women are lower, like an actual hatred of women. They're actual misogynists. So I don't know. That's kind of me. But this movie, I agree. It's in a way, when people say this movie pushes the onus on the woman to be the one to cure the marriage. It is the reality of the fact that this is an idea that Nigerians have, not only Nigerians, just generally. But for Nigeria, it's a reality of a fact. And I don't think that's necessarily misogynistic. I just think that that's what is. But in saying that the movie is misogynist, we lose a nuance and something to this movie. I think because an agency, people say she doesn't have agency in the movie. She actually does. If agency is the idea of like you making decisions and you putting it into the work, I think most of the times when people talk about agency, they just talk about a character doing something they don't necessarily ideologically agree with. But agency means having the idea to do something, to do what is something, and people are not going to have the same ideological ideas as the viewer.
What I said about agency, what I said about Mr. and Mrs.
Okay, she in Mr. and Mrs. First of all, I do agree. This is not my cure. this is not my cure for this, for whatever this guy does. But like she does, she fights for her marriage, but she definitely gets back at him. She gets back at him in the way of within her own power and within her own structures. Her idea was never to leave her husband. That was not her thing to do. She just wanted her husband back, right? And then she went on a plan to get her husband back. He is punished in it. For her, he is punished. For her, he is punished. For her, she punishes him. She does an empowerment. That's why people kind of like it. There was something slightly of like the woman. If we're talking about feminism, about women being equal to men and all that stuff, and also women having like empowerment or power to do, she does take on a power and do things to her husband that makes her husband realize, oh, I need her, and this is the ending that she wants. This is the ending that she wants. She doesn't kick him to the side because that's not necessarily what she was ever going to do as a character that was written. This is what she wants and this is what she gets. And so in a slight way, you can say this movie, even though I don't want to say it is feminist because of
Just
the
don't
ending of
say it.
something.
Just don't.
I don't want to say, but you can say it's just a feminism that you don't agree with. Like there's a lot of feminism I don't agree with, but I don't like choice feminism. And I don't like liberal feminism. I have an ideological disagreement with those types of feminism. But one thing you will never find me say, it's not feminism. I just think we're just women that have different points of
So
views.
let me tell you why specifically it's
So
not feminism.
let me finish. So this is what I'm trying to say. She takes on power. She does something. She goes against her husband that she for 17 years, remember, look at it from our point of view, from the character's point of view. She never went against him. She made fresh food for him. She did all these things. And this woman, decides to stand up by possible doing a fake like all those things, causing him trouble, causing him voila, all this that. And in saying that the movie that she's doesn't, it denies what it actually is emotionally for her. She actually does stand up. She doesn't do the whole kick and burn into the fire. Yeah, that's not what she necessarily wants to do. But she stands up, she gets brave, she becomes that. And that's why I think people like the movie. And within like 2012, sure, that was something that women wanted to see. Like putting it now, is it my personal idea? That man is dead if it's me. But it's different. Like, I wouldn't cook fresh food. What are you kidding? Are you kidding me? No. But that's the point. I don't want to just say the movie is misogynistic and then throw out the nuance of like not putting the movie within its context and time, and also not saying that the woman and her own story and all that stuff is not, because there's all that stuff to
Yeah,
behind it.
I say that
Insa's agency
even when I
never
saw,
in question at all. Like Insa has
Yeah.
agency in that movie, and she makes the decisions she decides to make, and that's fine. The movie is misogynist not just because of Insa and her husband. First of all, there are two stories in that movie. The movie goes
yes,
on to
Yeah.
continue
yes,
to be
Yeah.
doubly misogynist. Like it's not just focusing on Insa and whether she wants to cook fresh food or not. She seems like she was having the time of her life up to the point where she couldn't work. Like great for her, whatever those dynamics are. There is a second story in that movie where there's a woman who has a career, who shows up in her home every day, does more even with working than most men do, which is she still empowers her husband, gets him a job. She still makes sure the kids are fed. The husband is not doing boy boy like we've seen in other movies where the men, is not a breadwinner. She hires somebody to make sure that that gap is filled, and then he cheats on her. And within the concept of that movie, that's an acceptable solution because she has a job that she loves. And
yeah, it feels like it was a
Yeah, that movie
repercussion
is
for
sexist. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah.
Part
And
B
it,
is just 100%
but it's the whole
sexist.
movie.
and
It's
and
not part
100%
B and
sexist.
part A. The entire concept that the movie
No,
is
I'm
trying
just
to push to us
listen to what I'm saying.
is that.
Listen to
This
what
is
I'm saying.
acceptable
I'm saying
as long
Pabi is
as it happens
100%
within
sexist.
certain confines, which is so inside cooking, all of those things is great. She loves it. In fact, even in the movie, she's negotiating for a maid, and her premise is that she will still cook. She just needs somebody to clean up so she can do other things. But the movie is negotiating misogyny there within certain confines that is palatable to us as Nigerians. But then also, that is literally the primary message of the movie, is that it is our responsibility. In fact, the therapist at the end pretty much echoes that back to us. That is our responsibility.
Sorry, can I also add? I feel like we're forgetting a main plot point in this other woman's story is how they treated the house help slash housemaid who was in a what I refuse to call it a relationship, an entanglement with her boss with a very clear power dynamic that's unfair towards her. And the way that she was treated by both Nte's character and her madam's character, and like how they handled that thing, I don't understand how this film is supposed to be propped up as empowering to any woman because
No,
So
this is misogyny.
Oh, and then I
yeah,
worry that that girl is a child, because at the end she says, "I just
thank
have
you,
jam,"
thank
and I'm
you,
just like,
thank you.
"Where are we?
I
but we
Why are
gloss
we here?"
but we gloss over that. But here's the thing. So
I agree.
and it's
so,
all glossed over for what? By
Because
and
women
then
need
and
to
then
give up the
so
home, and how is that not
yes.
misogyny?
So here's the thing, and this is what I was thinking. I think you also mentioned that part B woman, right? She does a lot more than a lot of working men do. Because even in that scene where she blitzes in and she's off to work and she's shooting off a checklist of things that need to be done. I'm like, look at the person, because I know, right, this
mental
person is going to be
labor.
pointed. Look at the
Mental
mental load
labor.
that this woman is still carrying. She still knows that this child's teacher needs to be met with. She knows this needs to be done. You do this, you do that. She's seriously delegating before she jets off to work. And this is an example of a bad wife.
Yep.
But right. But and
So
here's my thing with Mr. and Mrs. because I didn't watch it at the time when everybody was, when it was a thing. I watched it recently for this space, for this conversation. And so I don't know how I would have seen it if I had seen it when people initially saw it. But obviously watching it now, everything is just giving me the ick. I do think it's a misogynistic film. I don't think they meant it to be misogynistic. I think it's a reflection of society's misogyny. I think it's a reflection of the society we existing and the forms of rebellion that are palatable for society, forms of female rebellion that the society finds palatable. And I don't think times have changed that badly. I think maybe for younger people, for people in certain spaces, sure. But I think for older generations, and for a lot of places, a lot of people, that is still the acceptable form of girl power, the acceptable form of resistance. And I think Mr. C said, a lot of his cousins and women around him, they really enjoyed it, right? They thought it was great. And when we were watching it, we're like, I see why some women would like this, right? I see why a good number of women would like this in that kind of community. It's because we exist in a society where a lot of women do think, right, you come home, your husband is your head, you submit, you this, but they think requesting fresh food is too far. Right? So it's the things that, of course, this is unreasonable. Of course, fresh food is too far, but you still need to cook for him, shao. But you should manage microwaved food from time to time, right? You still need to submit to him, but he shouldn't flaunt his girlfriends in your face. So those are the acceptable forms of rebellion, not outright cheating, no, because you wouldn't have outright cheated, right? It's dressing up and going out. It's buying a sex toy and naming it after him. Those kinds of things are the acceptable rebellions. The acceptable punishments for men who go too far, right, is you won't get fresh food today. I'm going to go outside and the maid can't cook. Because, of course, we can't find a different maid who can cook. Because this one maid can't cook. Let's get back together. I'm so sorry. I miss you. Let's, move on. But it is this idea that it is a woman's job it is a woman's responsibility to maintain her marriage. It is a woman's responsibility to hold her family together. It's not just responsibility, it's like a badge of honor. It's if you can suck it up, if you can do what needs done. The stories I have heard from people around me hailing similar things like this, right? Not the exact story, but they're telling me about, oh, this person's husband brought in a second wife. She didn't even fight him, right? She just spent a lot of money on herself, bought herself nice things, cooked nice meals for herself. And the second wife, starts getting jealous that, my G, why are you giving your first wife all this money and you're not giving it to me? And, he's trying to explain he's not giving her any money, but because he can't keep up. And, second wife gets angry and leaves. And it's like, it's an example of how she won, right? She won without fighting. She was just able to show the second wife. It's the way a lot of that our society feels about how you fight for your home, how a woman keeps her home. It's that mentality. And again, there's also this thing which I don't mean to be like, I'm not trying to be derogatory or anything, but there's like, because marriage is so important in Nigeria, right? And being a married woman is so important. They're showing us this film about a married woman's liberation, right? So every other woman in this film is unimportant, right? We're trying to liberate a married woman from abuse, but she's slapping the house girl, right? She's shouting at the house girl, not even the house girl that's sleeping with her friend's husband, the one that comes to her house that is clueless. We're sympathizing with her abuse, right? We're cheering her on for getting out of her abuse, but she's abusing this house girl in her house, slapping her, yelling at her, doing all sorts of things. She brings boys to go and carry the house girl from her friend's house. I'm throwing out the trash. And it's the smugness. And like, obviously, you don't want to victim blame, but I've watched you like be this guy's punching bag and, do all these things to try and get your marriage back. And you're so smug at this other woman, right? That, lost her home because she was working too hard. Like, why are you so smug? But Nigerian married women are smug. But yeah, I think the film is misogynistic, but I think it's a film that thought it was empowering women within the lines. And it's a film that was representative for a lot of women who are dealing with, challenges in their marriage and they want to be able to rebel within the lines. And they found that inspiring. They felt seen, visible, like they were being spoken for.
Sorry, can I say something? I don't know. I can't look my hand. So
yeah, go on.
Okay. Otas, I'm so sorry that I took your slot. I think personally, hopefully I don't sound like a misogynist. But I think personally, I don't think Mr. and Mrs. is misogynist. I watched it in 2012 when it came out, and I was I was a big fan of Unse's character, and I thought she fought for her marriage. And I rewatched it now, and I see everything that we are saying. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of men have issues with feminism is men always complain about this, and they say women are shifting the goalpost. And I think that's the issue with Mr. and Mrs. And I know we're not only talking about this, but yeah, is the issue where we are, I think, inherently misogynistic, Nigerians. It's really, really deeply rooted in our culture. It's deeply rooted in everything that we are. And the thing is, we are not misogynistic because we are trying to be. That's just who we are. So our growth in seeing women as other things is gradual. I think as at that time in 2012, seeing a woman as that was empowering for a lot of women, because women, there were times when women weren't even allowed to read at all. Like women couldn't go to school, right? So allowing women, for instance, to go to secondary school, for some women would seem like empowerment. And then there was a time when women could go to secondary school, but okay, just get your PhD. It's like it's a gradual process. Now when you look at it, like I said, I do agree with the fact that it has a lot of misogynistic undertones, and it is in its core misogynistic. However, in context of the time when it came out, I think it was empowering because we grow, right? We as a society we grow, and we finally realize that. I've gone into arguments with people that say a woman cannot be faster than a man. right? And then when you grow and you find that out, then I mean, you still you still keep giving women this mental limitations. So I just wanted to chip that in. That I also agree with Mrs. C, where I'm like, yes, the people that made this film weren't trying to make a misogynistic film. And I think there are a lot of things that we think are very feminist opinions now that 20 years from now, we'll look back at it and say, this weren't even really as feminist as we thought they were. We are just generally so misogynistic that little wins for women look so much more like a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
just
I'm going to try to
Just one thing.
um
Hang on,
just
hang on, everyone.
just
Praise,
just
praise,
just two
praise one
just two
second.
things.
Hello.
Then right, okay. Hang on, everyone. Praise just came on. Praise is the person who read the article. I'll give her a chance to speak. I just want to say, in just for some context, when I watched the Mr. and Mrs., I don't remember loving it that much. But it wasn't because I was a feminist or anything like that. I thought this was aggressive, or because I thought it was misogynistic either. I thought it was a little different, so I thought it was, kind of cute. But the thing that I do remember having an issue with was the other story, the side B story, because even from the guy being raised in Nigeria under the certain thing in the culture we're raised under, it was such a weird thing to see a man who wasn't providing and also had the goal to be that mean to be his wife. That was my view. When I watched it, I thought that was crass, and that was something I was uncomfortable with it. And rewatching it now, it just only adds. Yeah, I mean, I think like when we speak about it, I think there are two stories, and I think it's possible people could have felt really positive about Inta's story, whilst not so much about the other story. But praise. Thanks for writing the article. I don't know what you what you wanted to add, and how you felt about if you had any feedback from what we've been saying.
Okay, hi everybody. I just wanted to follow up on what the last guy said before you started speaking about, like, maybe because of the time it wasn't misogynistic. I just want to state that misogyny is misogyny in whatever time it was. Like, it doesn't matter if it was 1700s and you look at it today, and then maybe at that time it seemed empowering. It was misogyny in 1700s and it's misogyny today. So I remember I watched the film Mr. and Mrs. because my friends were like, "Oh, it's such a great film, you should see the film." And I watched the film and I remember thinking, and at that time my feminism was not fully formed. And I remember watching the film and thinking, okay, so why is this woman breaking her back when she could like easily leave this marriage? And there's a certain way that we are raised and indoctrinated as like women in the world. And I've said this thing before, endurance is like a tailor-made dress for women. You're asked to endure it all, continue to endure. You have to stay for your marriage. You have to, and that's what you see and said do for most of the movie. Probably some women found it liberating, air quotes around liberation, because like the other person said, that was the way that she could take her power, still air quotes around that. But the film is deeply misogynistic. It doesn't really matter at the time where it was said. I mean, Black people in the past couldn't go to school then because they were not allowed to go to school, and even then it was racist, and even now it's racist. So the time doesn't make something look empowering. If it's misogynistic from the start, it's misogynistic. And I agree that maybe the writers who wrote it did not have misogyny in mind. We're not trying to be misogynistic, because the thing is, misogyny is it's such a part of our society that even sometimes I have to check myself. And so to them, probably they thought that it was really an empowering movie, but in the end, it's really just misogynistic. And yes, there are women who have to go through things like that and feel like they're taking their power by having to like make the men go through a lot to get their marriage back. But I could say yes, it reflected those women's reality, but I don't think it changes the fact that it's a misogynistic film. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Praise. Actually, I actually agree with that, and that pretty much can sign off on it. There's a couple other topics I wanted to move on to, and
Wait, wait, wait. I
hopefully
just want to quickly say something.
Ayikas, we're moving. Well, we just got to move on. We're at almost 1 hour. There's like three other topics we've got to go onto. So I just need to move on. All right, sorry. The other one, and this one's even a bigger one. It's sexual assault in Nollywood movies, and I think as Nollywood Film Club has discussed this on several occasions, and it's kind of it's a running issue, I think, and I think Praise highlights one of the issues also we've been talking about in how it's portrayed in Nollywood in terms of its almost like carelessness and just without putting any weight to it. And although Praise, you're on here, I am going to offer a critique though, because like one of the films, and you might not have meant this as a full sort of like a good example of it, like a great example for it, but you did offer as like a decent example of sexual assault being sort of highlighted, done well, and that's in the movie Citation. I think Citation it's a movie we've done a review on, and so like this is one that it can't leave my memory, because I remember watching that film, and the framing of Citation, the whole point of Citation is that there is a right way to go about dealing with sexual assault. And it's not by taking it into your own hands. It's by going through the system, and the system will get you through it. And whilst it is a more in-depth look on what happens with sexual assault, and it's, I think the way it goes is even more, it seems almost dangerously incorrect, that the system will like sort of sort you out, the system will fix it, because especially in university setting that it's in, because again, you have to remember the framing of this we start with somebody who sort of wanted to do it herself, and later on in the movie, we're reminded, this is what you're not supposed to do. This is the correct. This is how we're supposed to do things if we want to get things right. But yeah, I'll leave that for you to think about. And whilst Vanessa, what did you want to say?
I was just going to say, Nollywood treats sexual assault as with female characters the same way they used female characters in Nollywood, just period. They're using them as character development for the male characters in the film, and that's how they kind of treat sexual assault. It's like, extra added color for our character, without really actually caring about how it's handled. It's just, and by the way, she was sexually assaulted. It's like, huh? And it happened so many times. You just know, it's almost, if it's not a punishment for a supposed bad that this woman has done, it's just, by the way, she was sexually assaulted. How? Why? What happened? How did she deal with it? How did it affect the rest of her life? How does it affect her current life? How does it affect how she's doing? Nothing. None of all that extra context is ever given. It's always just tacked on in the most offensive way possible. And yeah, Citation isn't any better. I'm so sorry. The idea that and you kept saying, the system will handle it. I think it's important to note what system that film was specifically talking about. A system in a Nigerian university. A Nigerian university. Are we for real? Are we actually for real? Just 3 days ago on Twitter, a man was sentenced to life imprisonment for the rape of his niece, aided by the braveness of his wife by reporting him. And there were still tons of Nigerian men in the comments of tweets talking about how they thought that was a harsh sentence. Which system is helping? The one time that the system did something, there were still people saying it was too harsh a sentence. So I find it very, I find it a falsehood to propagate that this system will help in any way, shape, or form. This is nothing to do with you, Praise. I'm
No,
just
no, no.
speaking about the film.
I have something to say though, but no problem. Go on.
Nothing to do with you, Praise. It's just the film,
No, I absolutely get your point about the film saying the system will save you. I had a problem with that too. The only reason why I added that because I didn't really frame it as a feminist film in the article. I was like, one of the films that actually discuss sexual assault to some extent is that film without making it seem like it's something to just keep the plot going or something that the main character has to struggle with, like Oga sleeping with the house girl who cannot give consent, by the way, or like something like that. But it's the fact that he got into like victim blaming and like sexual assault more than other films that I have seen from Nollywood. So I do get what
True.
you're saying, and I totally agree with you because I remember discussing it with some people. I'm like, oh yeah, that film didn't end well because that's not what happens in Nigeria. I mean, you could see the case with the professor in University of Calabar. So that's not really what happens. And so, and I agree with you totally that sexual assault is not treated well in Nigeria. It's something I discussed in the article. In the plot is usually something to keep the plot moving or one challenge that the main character has to face, not like an actual problem that this is. So yeah.
It's definitely very much a you should just call it like what film were we watching? What film were we watching?
Superstar? Was it Superstar? Where Nancy gets
well, there's many films. I don't know. I'm saying what film were we
Sorry, there's many, but I just need to shout out
There's
this lady
Superstar.
called
I'm trying to think of one of these recent ones on Prime. What's the director's name? He has this funny, weird name for his directing.
Lotana.
What's the one? The one with what's his face? The one with Daniel Etimeffiong. And from
A young time ago.
Long time ago.
A story. That film, is that not how we phrase the beginning of the story? Story.
Right, it's true. A long time
ago. And all of a sudden, from nowhere, I don't know how this thing started, and then it became this thing, and I don't know how Daniel Etimeffiong's character made the sexual assault of this babe an affront on him as a person, and then it became about now my babe. Now why you do this to my babe? Mind you, this babe is not his babe.
Mrs. C says, don't forget that Timini raped her because somebody gave him a drug. So
spiritual ecstasy.
And let's not forget that in the end, she actually had to apologize for him.
Thank you, Chidekenna. And I was like, what? I was how? So even when in their head, she was believed by him, somebody, they said, in this our film, the fact that somebody says I was sexually assaulted, nobody's going to doubt her. It's true. It happened to her. But it became about him. Even our cultist with a good heart, I don't know. Even him, the reason why he was doing it was because my mother was raped before, and that's why I hate rapists, not because rape is bad. Guys, let's honestly, I've begged, and I feel like we've begged as film club many a time, Nollywood, and I guess I feel like we should stop begging because apparently Nollywood does not listen to us. They don't care what we have to say. Please, I beg of you, do not use sexual assault as a plot device. Don't use it at all if you're not prepared to give it the care and thought that it deserves. Because the truth is, 90% of the time, the people who write these stories, the people who write these occurrences happening to women, don't actually care enough to do the work. Don't care. And it's not just even with sexual, it's evident in a lot of the things that we do. especially when you're writing women, they just don't care enough to care about the inner workings of women and how society affects them and how it makes women who women are and how it varies from woman to woman and how we're not a monolith. These things are very evident in how women are written in Nollywood. And in fact,
I do want to add though that the vast majority of a lot of these of Nollywood movies, well, I don't know if I'll say the vast majority, but a whole lot of Nigerian Nollywood movies, especially those that you're calling misogynistic, are written by women.
Women
there's
can
no there's
women
no
can buy into misogyny.
there's no monopoly on
Thank
misogyny.
you. Women can be misogynistic.
Because
I
even
know women
openly
can be
on misogyny.
misogynistic, but at the same time, I'm not really inclined to call these women or these movies misogynistic. I'll say that they just have a specific idea of social hierarchy and women's
Don't
role
start.
within it. Now, some people
Like
may
you just
say
said,
that's
So
inherently
misogynistic.
misogynistic. I'm not so sure that I agree.
Misogyny.
But,
I mean, they're not excluded from misogyny. They exist in
So
a
okay,
misogynistic society. They're raised around it. They're taught a lot of it. And yes, they might not see it as misogyny, right? Which is why they do their cute little girl power rebellion films, like Mr. and Mrs. It doesn't absolve them of.
so can I ask, in line with what Uchenna is saying, so like, and it's actually a trope, the virtuous woman trope. It was used in Mr. and Mrs.
Mhm.
It's been used in a couple of films. Actually, funny enough, I don't know, Chief Daddy 2 found time to include it in when Beverly, even though like Daminio, whatever his name is, Beverly's guy was supposedly, she didn't trust him whether he was cheating, and Patience comes to him and says, he's
These men are babies.
these men are babies. It's our duty to look after them. All right, so as a baby, imagine I'm a baby. Why is that misogyny?
Even this thing, Mr. and Mrs. said the
Yeah.
babies, yeah.
Yes. As a baby, why is that misogyny?
Because they're not babies.
Not sure. Okay, but like as a time, it's just like okay, so like it's just like if you look at the flip road, because like I think what Uchenna is saying is like this is the way people see hierarchies.
So like if it's like these men are to be managed.
Yeah, and
versus
it also
but it's also, yes, these are our babies. We need to manage them and submit to the babies.
It also absolves
because nobody does what their toddler asks them to do. Right? I imagine there are a few parents here. They have if you do what your kid if you do what your kid tells you to do, like you do a lot of dumb shit.
The combination of
but the thing is, if you ask the people,
also,
they would tell you that it's not necessarily completely about submitting to the man. That the submitting to the man is a form of performance. But as they say, the man is the head of the household and the woman is the neck.
I think it's cope though. Like when you have to throw in the woman as the neck, right? You're coping with, and it's some form of, I won't say cognitive dissonance, but it's some form of carving out some sort of power for yourself in a situation where you don't have it. When you say the man is the head but the woman is the neck, you're telling yourself, I do have some sort of power. I do have a way to try and direct the situation regardless of. And I think that's just something inside you that's fighting. That's something inside you that's actually fighting because it probably doesn't feel that to me anyway. It doesn't feel that natural, right? It doesn't feel natural to put yourself secondly.
You're not addressing what like what is it? Is it the combination? Is it the combination of submit and combination of submit and look after it's our job to maintain your home.
I think.
Sorry.
Why am I submitting and infantilizing at the same time? Like,
it absolves men of responsibility.
Let somebody else speak.
No,
go on.
Can I speak? Can I speak?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the whole men are babies thing, why it's misogyny, is it absolves men of responsibility. It's kind of that thing you throw in as if men are people who can't think for themselves. So you have to excuse their behaviors or excuse the mistakes, which sometimes are even crimes that they commit. So that's why it's misogyny. So you absolve them of responsibility and then heap it on the victim's back and everything, you blame it on the person. It's the same trope with boys will be boys, those kinds of talk. So yeah, it absolves men of responsibility. That's why it's misogynistic.
I
I
think
think
that's really
that
nice.
what people are struggling here is a dissonance between what is said and how things actually sometimes happen. The idea of like, okay, the woman is the neck, the man is something. We cannot lie that in the actual world, it does kind of happen that sure, the woman seems that she's submitting, but everybody knows that without our confirmation for something, it wouldn't happen. It happens a lot in actual history, right? Um, One good example is it, and Henry de la Lad, like this, the Queen. What's it? She was important. Even fuck it. Let me not even go to European history. Let's go. Let's use Nigerian history. Let's use the history of of the Benin Empire. What's the name of the queen and the king and her son that she ensured that her son was the next king? She brought a lot of influence. Without her being there, he wouldn't have been the king. And she's important to the history of the Benin Empire. She's considered a very, very powerful woman and a very, very powerful thing. And this thing, you see it across the world. If you go to Japan, the nun Kanage, she was very important to the third shogunate. So important and so powerful. It's you see it across the world. The idea that that's a cope, it's not a cope. It's very important. These women shaped history. These women shaped things. So you're seeing a dissonance of like, okay, there is the idea that women are just servers. I'm not saying that women aren't doing that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in the actual lived way of things, it is actually much complicated than that. Mr. C and they are pointing to something that is actually very, very real. Like, sure, the woman is the one taking care of it's still ridiculous that women have to do, that thing is still put on women. But some women fight for it because it's powerful for them. They actually do have actual power. It's not good for all women because some women don't actually have actual power. And that's the one thing I wanted to point out that Miss Something pointed out. Like, feminism sometimes, popular feminism sometimes, is for some women and not all women. Or women, or for instance, women will have to go work in the house, outside of the house. Women have always been working outside. Even in Europe, that's a very popular thing about the second something. Women have always been working outside the house. Poor women have always been working outside the house. That thing was not very helpful to most women in England or something because they were already working outside the house, wasn't it? It was good for very middle class women, just as in the movie, it wasn't good for the house girl, but it was good for the married middle class woman. That's one thing about our feminism has to actually now handle. That feminism, popular feminism, have always, in many ways, been actually very classist. So it's a dissonance that we are seeing. Sure, the woman is the neck. That's pointing to something that actually happens in reality. Without the neck, the head is nothing. And it's true. What they're saying, there are many examples. There's countless examples of like, the man looks like the man that is the one that is in charge. He's taking the throne. And this is not even only for women too. Even for men, there are kings who are like, if you look at history, the person behind them is the actual person with the power. The regent is the actual person with the power. But the man that is sitting on the throne is sitting on the throne, but he's not actually the person with the power.
I think I get your point, and I'm not disagreeing with there being women in history who and in present times who have shaped, women who have shaped history from the shadows via proxies, because again, they weren't allowed to have that power outright. So it has to be done in the shadows. It had to be by making sure her son was on the throne and shaping policy from behind because she couldn't be there. And sure, there are some women who drive these things because again, we're not talking about exceptions. We're not talking about the one or two cases. And I still stand by, of course, without the neck, the head cannot move, right? But that neck is an addition. They've added it now. It has been thrown in there to make it more palatable. They've thrown in, oh, you are the neck to make this person is your head palatable. And I still maintain that in a lot of cases it is cope. Do a lot of women have influence over their husbands in a lot of ways? Yes, of course, sure. However, do a lot of them have any real power in those dynamics of the head and the neck?
I think that's a key point, is where if we disguise, if we want to disguise no power as soft power, and I think that's where you can find. But I think there's still also something in there with people's versions of what they think gendered roles ought to be in, especially in relationships, in a married relationship, because I'm thinking, like, I think reacting to what Praise said, where you're saying is the abdication of responsibilities for men, when if a woman decides to go, yeah, we should take care of, we need to take, like we need to take care of the home, and it's something I don't agree with. But if somebody decides to adopt that as it's almost like, because like I think I say that because I think men have their version of these things for women, where it does it's it's like, how women are, and it's just supposed to be like, it does it is taking away responsibility from certain female actions, but like that's a saying that is also popular. So like, I'm not sure if I would call that misandry. It's just like, it's not a. I'm just saying for the reverse now, because like if the other one is called misogyny, I wouldn't call this one I'm saying I wouldn't call this misandry, because I and again, like, I'm here to learn. I don't agree with it, with all these type of roles. I just think people should be able to do what works for them, and I think people generally know when they don't have a real say, or when they're being some people can anyway, but like it's when we start being a little bit more rigid with roles, and you can't do this, right? So like Insa in the film, she wasn't allowed to, she couldn't go to her meetings. She had to like be serving what do you call it? She had to be making fresh food. So when like people are being restricted from doing a bunch of other things that they should be doing, that's where I think it starts becoming dangerous and into what we would call misogyny generally. I don't know who wanted to speak previously. All right, let me just in the meantime,
I wanted to say that generally when men make the statement that you know how women are, and when people tell you men are babies, the situation or what the reason for that statement is quite very different. Usually when men say, oh, that's how women are, it's usually because they are nagging. When you hear men are babies, it's either because he cheated or he beat his wife up, or he did, or when you hear boys will be boys, he assaulted somebody. So I just want to say that what causes the statements for men and women are very, very different.
I disagree. Well, not that they're never different, but I think sometimes we say that to excuse very bad habits from. I say we, and I don't do it. But people say that to excuse obviously bad habits, bad things from certain women. It's is if they're being verbally abusive across. Oh, no follow am talk. Na so woman. Suppose they follow am talk. Na so woman. Is that? All right, yeah, everything is pointing to misogyny, right? Okay, all right. So like the abdicating responsibility is misogyny, but like my point is still the same. It's like if saying taking away responsibility on this one doesn't seem to be the it thing. Like I don't know, it doesn't. it seems like, again, the issue, like I'm with Richard, is like there's sometimes a kind of gendered role that people think works for them, or are trying to live out, and it doesn't work for everyone. And like, especially when we see that it doesn't work for us, or work for a particular person, if you're trying to do your own thing and people are telling you, no, you ought to do this, especially when some of those roles may favor, again, I'd say some of those gendered roles tend to favor men, especially in 2023, right? I think so that's where if you go, no, you have to do the thing, societally, individually, that's why I think the misogyny can start raising
Yeah,
itself.
I'm just reiterating and maintaining that I think the phrasing of men are babies is a way to cope, because if I'm just gonna go off experiences, right, of people I've been around, relationships I've been able to have a peek into, women I've listened to, I know these babies they're talking about, right? They're talking about these babies who can't do their laundry, right? These babies who are dependent on them, who need them to feed them, who need them to pick their clothes out and all of this stuff. These are their babies, right? And they take pride in looking after them in that way. However, if these babies tell them be home by 5, they have no choice but to be home by 5. If these babies tell them don't go to that event, they will not go to that event. If these babies tell them, no, you don't get to see your mother this weekend, you don't get to see your mother this weekend. And
that's that disguise for me.
That's that disguise. That's for me. That's why I find it as cope, right? It's okay. You have this person depends on you for these things, right? So they're your baby, and you feel that sense of. I do think it makes some people feel powerful in a way that they can't ordinarily, and they take comfort in that. They take comfort in that power. They take comfort in that, he's a baby. In the same way, your child does something dumb and you say, nah, small pikin, they worry him. Get what I mean? It's if you can frame your husband in that way, if you can frame this person in that way, then it's more palatable. It's easier to manage. You don't feel bad. You don't feel subjugated. You don't feel anyway. You're fine. It's fine. This is the baby. I look after him, and he gets to tell me what to do.
Yeah. All right. We pivoted away from the sexual assault stuff in like Nollywood. I think Vanessa did touch on a few of them, that there are countless of examples of a lot of these things.
Can I say, just on the sexual assault thing, I have fundamental problems with citation, right, over the ending. And I think because I've seen Kunle do it twice, I think maybe he does generally believe that this is the thing, because he did the same thing in Swallow, right? This thing where if you go through the right way and if you go through the right channels, the system will take care of you. And I think it's just a blindness, right? Because he doesn't, it's not something he's ever had to deal with or whatever. So I think he just has that blindness with it, because he's put it twice in 2 films. He's put it in 2 films. But again, I don't know anybody who went to a university in Nigeria who has been on the internet. If you've been on the internet, there's no way you haven't seen Sex for Grades documentary, right? Or heard anything about it, or seen like the student protests and something. So I have absolutely no idea. When I was in university in Nigeria, it was just like an open secret, right? On the lecturers that were sex pests, right? It was, everybody knew, students knew, staff knew, right? You knew that if it got before the Senate, which lecturers have friends in the Senate. Like, all everybody did was just try to stay under the radar and just not come into anyone's line of sight, because as soon as they don't cite you, you're actually in trouble, right? And some people had to bring their parents just so it could be like, so I have fundamental issues with how we handled that. But I have to say, thinking about it, citation is one of our better ways of putting sexual assault in a film, because for one, that was the point, right? That was the story. The story was fighting through the odds to try and get a conviction on that kind of issue, right? That was the story. And I think it did do it did show how somebody could go under the radar, right? How he's so well respected, it was just hard for people to believe that he is a sexual predator, right? How he warmed his way into her life, right? He seemed non-threatening. He discussed her interests. He made her feel safe. You know what I mean? So like, this is just a young student. Like, it's obvious that it's made clear that she's young for her class. Like, everyone else is much older than her, but she's young, she's brilliant, and this is like a well-respected professor who makes her feel safe, lulls her into a false sense of security. And, it does show, I don't know if that was the intent, but it does show how, like, someone could warm their way into making you prime for victimization, right? How they can, be a chameleon and make you feel safe and then pull you into that kind of scenario, and how, because of their public persona, a lot of other people might find it difficult to believe you and all of that stuff.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I think it was stupid. No, because like I still remember that film, like where there's a part where he's already tried to rape her, and he's already shown, like, no, has he tried to rape her? Or he's already shown intent of like trying to have sex with her, and she stays with him whilst everyone has gone out, like after a party. I'm like, don't write. I feel like women are much more on their toes than that, and I don't like it when being left alone with a male lecturer is one thing. Being left with a male lecturer that has openly shown he's trying to sleep with you just seems dumb to me.
It seems written by a man.
Yeah, if she only just reported to the school. But like, I think there's something with Kunle Afolayan's work that I still don't. I don't know, Praise, if you have extra insights to this, or whoever watches Yoruba movies, tell me, because like Kunle Afolayan and sexual assault, I don't think they go very well. But like it's still writing sexual assault, like Anna Clarkwa is another thing he did, and it has very. I don't even know if he knows the things he did in there as sexual assault, because the tone of a bunch of these things are confusing. From Saro's first, want to talk about our dynamic with Sarah and what's her name?
Bimbo's character.
Not Bimbo's character. Bimbo's character.
Oh, this woman's character.
I
can't remember her name.
I almost got that thing.
I almost called her Shafi.
Yes. Yes. That sex was very, very uncomfortable to watch first time. And then Sarah's this thing with Bimbo's character, where she creeps up on him in the woods and
tackles him to the ground. She tackles him to the ground.
I don't understand. And then Sarah completes the trifecta.
Beyond that, though, I have to bring back to that tackling thing, because it was the way it was shot. I'm sorry, was I the only one who watched the way his eyes were going left to right?
Like because someone was following. Movie.
He could say yes.
It looked like a horror movie. It looked like a monster getting in the woods.
You could sense that someone was following him in the woods. I'm sorry, that thing was scary. And then the way she jumped on him, I was like, huh?
And the music accompanied with all of this. It's just, I don't, that's why I said, I don't know whether Kunle knows even accepts that this is sexual assault. I don't know. But the one that seems clear to me was Saru and his maid or something, where he clearly rapes her, and then like the next scene is just like, wow,
wife oppressing Bimbo.
They're married now, and they're living a good life. I don't even. Anyway, I don't know.
So yeah, does anyone familiar with Yoruba movies? Yeah, this is the thing.
I think somebody brought up. I can't remember if it was Elizabeth brought up that Yoruba movies do have tend to do this thing where people they rape, they end up together with, I don't know, or getting married to it.
Yeah.
Wow.
You bought it?
Yeah, basically.
It's biblical. Old Testament.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Anyway.
Moving on.
All right. Okay. So the other thing, and this is probably the last one we touch on, is like, are they good examples of feminism that we like? I think it's funny because like there are some films that have started like we are good as. In fact, before we go to good examples, can we think about failed attempts? Failed attempts of feminism. I think there were some films I put up in there that
That
what
Women's Riot is my first one.
Women's Riot. Do you
Not
want?
Women's Riot. Sorry, the one where the
Wives on
women.
Wives on
strike.
strike.
Wives. Thank you
And you
very
want to
much.
know why
That
wives on
one.
strike kills
Wives
me?
on
It's a
strike. That's my
double
first one.
offender, and it is Omani Oboli who is a triple offender because she's also behind Love is War. I don't
Yeah.
know what Omani Oboli is doing, but she needs to stop it.
I think she has a cute little feminism.
All right. Okay. So, does anyone want to go first with their one? I have
So,
a control.
Wives on Strike is the first one since I will go because I don't know what the premise of that movie. I mean, I know what the premise of the movie is, but I feel like as women, right, as feminists, one of the things that we are trying to do, first of all, is remove ourselves from this idea that sex is a bargaining tool. First of all, because over time, even before outside feminism, one of the things that people tell you, if you've ever spoken to an older woman, one of their tools of quote unquote control is
Bottom power.
sex. Yeah. And it's like, how can that be your biggest power? How is that not insulting to you as a woman? Like, it doesn't make any sense because first of all, this movie, let's start from the fact that it gets all the women in Lagos to align. All of a sudden, none of the men cheat. And none of your girlfriends will sleep with them. Let's even move away from that. So this is a world where all the men are faithful. And so because they are faithful in this way, the women are then able to say, we won't have sex with our men. And that is a thing that all of a sudden changes Nigeria. That is insanity.
oh, I'm just gonna quick interject. Prostitutes joined the project. The sex workers joined the protest.
I know,
So,
like that's what I'm saying. So this is a movie where all the women in Lagos, so
yes,
whatever
everybody
country,
aligns.
city, they're
Yes,
all
yes,
just align, and then
yes.
they're all
We're all
just
unified.
agreeing
It
that
sounds
this
like
is what we are going to do, and this is how we're going to change the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chira.
Yeah, because they don't need to eat, like
This is their jobs exactly.
they
Like
don't need to eat.
it's just a convenient way there. Like it's sort of the thing about acceptable activism that we keep seeing even in Nigeria. It was the same thing with NSARS, let's be for real. Like there was a point where it was acceptable for the protest to happen and everybody was like, oh yeah, it's cool as long as you guys are protesting in this way where I have said is acceptable. And that's what Nollywood preaches, really, in all its movies about protesting or activism. It's always sort of the underlying, you can protest, but, you know, just don't disrupt my life too much. And here are the two acceptable ways in which you are allowed to assert this thing you're feeling. And for women, it always comes down to two things: cooking and sex, which is how is that not just reinforcing the same patriarchy? If your power is either in the kitchen or in the bedroom, what is the purpose? What are we saying?
I just want to say, the sex thing, in the Liberian Civil War, this is not the only what's it called, thing that they used, but it was one of it where the women stop having sex with their husbands to create peace for the
One
Civil
off,
War.
but
So
this movie
one
just
of the things.
just to
Just
say,
want to point out
we
that
are
it
going to wear
it,
our
it
pants
was
and
used
take it
by
off,
women
and that's the
in
end.
actual life.
All right. Anybody else have other failed attempts by Nollywood?
Love is war. Love is war. For some reason,
Again, I would like to
that's
point out
it.
it's an Omoni Oboli creation.
Double trouble. For some reason, I never saw it when it came out, right? I thought, oh, interesting premise. And then I just never saw it because my spirit was right. And then proceeded to watch it the other day and I was like, what is this travesty? I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to start with Love is War, because I think, yeah, this was supposed to be powerful woman, right? Supported by man, supported by her loving husband, and then she has to face off against him. But oh my God, oh my Jesus. This is another attempt. This is another, there's such an inability to write women, right, in Nollywood. Maybe there's also an inability to write men. I don't know. I don't, you know, I'm not a man. I don't watch it and go, I don't have those feelings that I have for women, right? And you're right. It's such an inability to write women, because who is this person? And why do I need to root for her for being governor, except for the fact that she is a woman? Because they give me absolutely fuck all, right? First off, she's contesting for governor of her husband's state. Interesting. Interesting, sure. Second, she doesn't, her daughter asks her, and her daughter is annoying as fuck, but she asks her, like, when was the last time you visited that state? Because she shows up with, oh, this is for the good of those people. But she didn't care. Somebody just came and was like, yeah, you want to do it? Okay, all right. It'll be cool to have a woman governor. Not, I want to do shit for that state. Not, I know those people. Not, I care. Nothing. Just, yeah, sure. I'm a woman. I'm going to be governor. Awesome. Right? And they do so much to avoid making her husband have a single bad bone in his body. Oh, her husband is wonderful. He has no bad bone in his body, because the only reason he decides to run against his wife, because I'm watching this going, where are they going with this? How's he going to run against her? The only reason he decides to run against his wife is because she's evil. She does not care that they took people's homes and livelihoods without compensation. And he's like, this evil bitch has to be stopped. I mean, I love her, but we cannot let her govern a state. She is a witch. So he does not discuss this with his wife, right? He does not go, wife, when you're governor, could you not do like terrible shit and take lands away? No. He just shows up to campaign. She just has to see his campaign on the news, like, oh, okay, all right. You know, also she makes him look stupid by saying the people who are using him are using him. And, you know, they agreed that he will run because the people wanted to use him and he wasn't going to let. Okay, sure. Cool beans. But also this witch of a woman, right, is the first person to get violent, right? She dead ass has dogs attack her husband's car. He comes home like, hey, did you get people to throw shit at me? She's like, did you die though?
But did he die?
But
no.
No, but he is perfect, right? He does not want to get violent. He does not want to smear his wife, right? Only until she pushes him to it. Like, she is the one who wants to be governor by every means. It's do or fucking die for this woman, right? And so bad, right? What do? We throw in sexual assault again. But not only do we throw in sexual assault, right? She's like, oh, he's about to like lose his cool about her cheating on him, but he stops, right? He doesn't say it, right? And then she goes, yeah, he was going to say that I slept with my boss, but no, I was raped. Now, again, obviously, this is Nigeria that people still victim blame you for rape, by the way, right? This is Nigeria where it's a female politician really going to go on stage and say, yeah, my husband thinks I fucked my boss for a promotion, but really I was raped. And people are going to go, oh no, really, she was raped. Or are the people who think she's trying to take her husband's rightful place going to go, no, she's a slag. She did sleep with her boss for a promotion. Sure, we're going to throw that there. And the very next scene, she tells her husband, ha! Threw that rape in your face for political props. Ha!
Disgusting.
Actually
disgusting.
She's giggling about her assault. Like she's had so much glee.
Absolutely vile.
I don't know where this film was going. And then she wins. Eventually, she does win because, you know, she is a woman. She did have to win at the end of the day. And I totes believe that. I totes believe that the state voted for the wife of the guy who got shot while he was contesting against his wife. I totes believe they don't think she's an evil witch who tried to assassinate her husband for political gain, because women are evil witches who will do anything for power. Totes. Yeah, those are my thoughts on Love is War. And I watched that film thinking, oh my God, I wish we had a space so I could cook.
It's crazy.
But to buttress it though, it begs the question: if he's such a great person, why is he married to her? If she's such a great person,
That's how it's finding the housing man's fault.
How does not?
I think she
How is it not evil too? Or then how is she not, like, what are we doing in this marriage?
I mean, did you see the way she was looking at him though? I think he's married to her for reasons we can't understand. You don't know how,
he could not just now be finding out that she's
a witch.
Like
she's never contested for governor before. She's never contested for governor before.
Okay, anyway. I have two examples. One is very obvious. Shantytown. Shantytown, the feminism apparently it was past the what you even saw on screen. It was also, produced by a bunch of women. So there you go.
They went ahead to market it.
Yes.
Was it even feminist?
And they went ahead to market it, and then they were doing interviews post the release of how feminist it was.
That's the thing. It was marketed as women taking. Did you miss how they all killed Scar? As women, where the women are lining up to take their power, take back their power. Anyway.
You just mentioned my Achilles heel. But if you say it's not feminist, then I have to not insult it anymore. Because I have to accept it as a feminist something for me to destroy it.
All right. But to be fair, that's my obvious one. The one that I think is slightly more controversial is Lionheart. I think Lionheart is a butch feminist movie. Aside from the synopsis that Netflix will give you. This story about a woman trying to make it in a male-dominated space, and she has all this. If I were a boy, this wouldn't have happened to me. Number one, I just couldn't think of a less likable character, like trying to most entitled. I should get CEO because I'm your child. She's late to all of the meetings. I don't really know why. And then she's very bad at making plans. She makes one plan without making a plan B. And then at the end of the day, the person who figures this out, even though this film tries to make it out like it's her idea, but she just goes back to her uncle's idea that he pitched her near the beginning of the movie. I don't understand. I mean, how this is such a bad. I know, there are people who love Lionheart here. I will continue to cook. I don't care. I don't care until your eyes open. I will continue to cook this movie because this movie. I think there was a lot of there were some nice family things that happened in this movie, and people were just very happy to see that. And it was just kind of a different story for Nollywood. But I still think a butched feminist story for me. Yeah.
I agree.
Oh, there we go. They can cook, both of us, if they disagree. All right. If anyone doesn't have any other botched examples of feminism in Nollywood, I want to go to...
I have one. I have one. I like the movie. I like the show. But I have one, King of Boys. Not the movie, but the. I also think there's something wrong. I also think there's something with the movie, but the series. I think it's a butch sort of feminist. First of all, then again, I think almost all feminist movies have some issues with them. But I think it is because in the series, we were promised and we were told the story of Eniola trying to get redemption. But instead, she uses her children's death. She uses as everything. And she goes so far into what's it called? Into being just a horrible, horrible person. and we just lose like whatever sense of empathy or something that you can give to this character. And we're supposed to be okay kind of with it because now she's a badass woman who has getting power. In some ways I like it. I like that story, but in the way of like, should you support women just because they are women? No, she's evil. But at the same time, I don't want to say that it's botched completely. Because if that's just the character story, that's just character storyline. But as a feminist, something as people using it as feminist, sure, I can see why it can be feminist. But she's just as bad as the men, as awful, powerful, greedy,
So
corrupt men.
feminism, she's equally bad.
So yeah, it's fem. Yeah, that's why I said
But
I said I
isn't
can
that
see that.
isn't that an
I can
inherently
see that.
isn't that
But
inherently
she's
a
just as bad.
feminist message? If you're saying that men and women are essentially equal, then women can be as much pieces of shit
I
as
Yeah.
give,
women
yeah,
too.
Yeah,
I give it.
I'm gonna
I
have to
give
say
it.
it.
It's just again. This is why I'm saying my own ideological something. Like I'm not going to be here saying that it's not feminist. That what's the name of that prime minister, the British prime minister? She's you can definitely give an argument of a feminist icon, and I'll agree and I'll give it to you. But ideologically, I disagree. Not disagree. I don't like our ideas or our political power. I don't like it, so I'm just going to go against you. Not as woman to woman, just as I'll go against another man who does that thing. So it's feminist in a way,
I mean,
but in another way, it's not my
I,
ideological
I,
support.
yeah, I will say I have no love for King of Boys Volume 2. But for KOB 1 or the actual film, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to call it feminist. I don't know, right? But I will say that is by far, in my opinion, the best female character that Nollywood has given us. Just as a character, as a person that has facets and all of that. And in the context of the film that she was put in, she is a crime boss in a crime film. And I don't need women to be good, right? I don't need women characters to be good. And again, and this might sound so compared to like what I just said about Love is War, but for Love is War, I'm watching somebody contest for governor and having a stupid moral high ground, but whatever. But this is a criminal. And for part one, I absolutely rated this. I rated this representation of a woman as a criminal because she's a bad person that's doing bad things with other bad people. And that's just who she was. And again, and I think this brings us back to my thing on, do movies need to be moral, right? Or to give moral instruction? And something like King of Boys to me, something like the first King of Boys to me, it's entertainment. You don't have to give me any moral instruction. But again, I maintain they should not do more harm, which Mr. and Mrs. is something that I do think is harmful. So that's my complicated feeling on whether or not Nollywood has a responsibility to give moral instruction is don't do more harm and don't put in harmful tropes when you're just doing things that could be influential to people and stuff like that. But you're gonna give me crime shit, right? Sorry, pardon my friend. You're gonna give me things with crime, right? There's Brotherhood with Obalola and Co. There's Gangs of Lagos, there's whatever, right? There's King of Boys, and we're following a crime boss doing crime boss stuff. And she's not going to be a good person, and she's not going to have good morals, but she is a character who is doing things using her resources as a woman to navigate a male-dominated space. And unlike Lionheart, she doesn't have to depend on the ideas of her uncle to succeed in this life that she has chosen.
Yeah, I think though that there is Inca, and I'm not trying to cast any aspersions on you, but I do think there's something inherently sexist about expecting a woman to seek redemption in a world where everybody else is doing bad things and she's just going on to do bad things with them. Why is no one else
No,
seeking
no,
redemption?
no.
Why is she
They
responsible?
sold us that she was going to do that. They sold us. I didn't accept. I didn't think she should.
I
They
mean,
sold it. That's
so
why I
redemption
was like,
in her
why?
case though wasn't, oh my god, my kids are dead, I'm going to do good things. Redemption in her case was taking her power and her throne back. She redeemed herself by getting her power back.
I do
That was
think she
not what
failed.
she said.
I
That
do
was
think she
not what she
failed in
said.
that
She
last
said the
one as well, to
opposite.
be honest, because she just handed her underworld power to the person who killed her children. But again, King of Boys
Mhm.
Volume 2 does not exist to me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I hate
I
Volume
have
Two.
to say that's the thing that
I didn't
pissed
even
me
Erased
know
off
from
the
my
they were the
most.
memory and
the
from
same
existing me.
movies.
That's the thing that pissed me. The fact that she gave her power to the person that killed her children. Like, she literally said she wanted to do redemption. She said it, and we didn't get to the end. And of insult upon insult, the men that killed the children, that's who you handed your power over. It just showed that you're just a complete power. You have no morals. No, there's no line
Yeah,
for you.
doesn't have any morals. She's
So
a thief. She's a crime boss. She murdered
yeah,
Yeah,
people
but
for
thieves
fun.
also
yeah.
still have morals. There's something.
My
There's something.
problem
There's some. I'm being conservative here. I'm being the conservative
I
something of
got
like
problems with
my
the King
blood.
of
You
Boys
don't fuck with
volume.
my blood, and she did, and I'm like, nah, bye bye.
Yeah,
maybe
my
maybe it's
problem with
my
King of
conservatism
Boys
that came out.
Volume 2 was it's slightly different. It's like in King of Boys Volume 1, Oba feels like a much more rounded character. Even though, like, you know, she's a crime boss and all of stuff, she's also a mother, and she's kind of also looking out for her community. So you can even see levels of political ambition in her that she is actively working on. And in King of Boys Volume 2, she just feels whiny. Just the, you know, actually, when she starts, I know she's supposedly mourning her children, but like it felt like we already closed that arc in part one. But we open and she's crying and weeping, and then she's crying and weeping to one other person, and then when she's running, she's crying and moaning to her campaign manager that she's a woman. That one was where it pinned me. Where it felt like a real betrayal of Oba, like where she's like, oh, you know, like, do you know what I've suffered as a woman? It didn't feel like my Oba would say that. My Oba would just get shit done.
Never would
Right?
have.
Oh God.
Sorry,
Anyway.
you people are ignoring. Oyinko, I'm very surprised you bring this up as like a flawed, as a flop at like feminism, and don't mention the Lagos State governor's wife. She's peak representation of I'm the neck, I'm the neck, I'm the one running this. You are running this, and yet what?
You're running this, and your mother-in-law will tell you to kneel down. You will kneel down.
It's
No, but
like
she was running it. She was running it.
Yes, but it's a representation of not having any actual power.
Yes, it's a
power.
proper.
There's
What?
that's it.
Yes,
That's the
but she doesn't
total
have
myth.
any actual
Because
power, not
even though
because
she
she's a
was
woman,
given,
but
she
because
was
she's poor. She comes from a poor background. Again, there's a difference here.
she
She's
was
not because
doing
she's
work and giving a lot and giving her, doing her background control and running things at the background. And at the end of the day, she didn't have any actual power. She could still get kicked out.
yes.
Could still get
Remember, it's
put
a
down.
mother-in-law that has power. The reason why is because of our
Yeah,
poor background. It's a classism thing. It's not a
yeah, yeah,
feminism thing.
I don't. Me, I
yeah.
It's
just
the
wanted
fact
to
that she
point out
doesn't actually have
character for
power.
you people to talk about though. So
Yeah. You're right. You're right. It still points to my idea of what I've been saying about like one of my biggest issue with feminism speaking is that feminism, the type of feminism that gets popular and gets all the hair something is the feminism that always seems to help middle to upper class women, not necessarily the feminism that seems to help poor women.
Sure.
Because that's one thing, and it's still reflected. It's always reflected, and that's why some of this, I think, these movies have like reasons to. They reflect our society in very many different ways. We may not like the feminism ideologically, but it's reflecting the truth about our society. Sorry, my father is calling. I have to go.
Okay. No, all right. Okay, so like I think we've already tapped into some of the next topic for me is like good examples of feminism in Nollywood, of feminist characters.
that one go as small.
Wedding party.
No, like even me now, I'm like, huh.
Mine's King of Boys Volume, King of Boys
Yeah,
Part
Oba,
1.
I guess is pretty good, but
Yeah.
let me think.
Oh God, this is hard. Bring
That's
up the
like
voice. Where's our list?
No, from this year, forget
Not
about
this
it.
year. Last.
You know,
yeah.
I'm going to go to my old favorites. And you know
Uh-huh.
me, Angela, that's my babe for
Oh,
life.
like family,
That's
yeah.
my babe.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna go with her.
Okay.
Did you love Wicked Women?
I mean, like it's funny how like writing It's actually interesting how like writing anti-heroes, female anti-heroes is the best way to give like a well-rounded
Yeah.
female lead. That's kind of sad.
I know, but
It
like
is, but
I
every time
think they really struggle with writing like a straight and
normal
narrow
woman,
woman without
Without
throwing
making her
in
feel like cardboard.
virtuous woman. Yes, without making her a virtuous woman, and then they struggle with writing a not good woman without giving her a comeuppance, right?
Yeah.
For her sins or
and I
forcing her
think
to
that's why I like
change.
Angela. I mean, she dies, but it doesn't really feel like
Like a
a
comeuppance. It just feels
comeuppance.
like a
Yeah,
natural
it just feels
consequence
like
of the lifestyle she chose,
yeah, exactly.
right?
And so even with Oba, when her whole family dies, it still doesn't feel like
Yeah.
they're punishing her for
Comeuppance,
being a
yeah.
woman. It's because
It's the
you're a
game is the
crime
game.
It's
boss.
collateral
It's
Yeah.
just a thing
damage.
that happens,
Yes,
and
it's
yeah.
collateral
So,
damage.
but in other movies, I'm trying to think of it just a normal person who does normal person things, who then isn't like who doesn't conform, who doesn't get punished, sort of for not conforming. And I can't think of a single one.
You know who should have been all right, but like obviously was played by Nancy Isime her character in Obaram, because that was a character again who had like who wasn't she had an edge. um
I'm
but
sorry. I
yes,
can't.
Yeah, but she was awful because she didn't want her baby, and
I'm sorry. I'm
yeah,
just
her dad
screaming
went and
because
got the baby back from the orphanage and beat the
Mr.
shit
C
out of her.
said it would have been great, but she was played by.
yep, that's that's how I feel still.
Oh my god, failed feminist films, Blood Sisters.
Oh my god, Olotu Yusuf,
Olotu,
I
yeah.
was just thinking Blood Sisters because that was horrendous, man.
Wow, fugitives.
What fugitives now?
Okay. So so nobody has any idea of any other good ones.
I'm just going through
I
Nollywood
think
films trying to
didn't the article have a call?
You guys
Pretty,
didn't mention Dry. Nobody talked about Dry here.
find.
People have forgotten
I
what
haven't
Dry
seen
was
Dry.
about.
no, I haven't. Yeah,
I
Dry
haven't
was.
watched Dry. Couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, I couldn't find Dry to do a rewatch, but Dry was. I remember watching Dry, and I remember strongly disliking it. I don't know whether that was because of. I think it
It
came
felt
across
like
to me back
poverty
then.
porn.
Poverty porn is exactly what I was going to use.
And I think I think it had a savior-ish complex to it. And I think that's why I disliked it towards the end. I thought it was, telling an important story. But I felt there was the angle towards the, now maybe my memory is not so good, but there was an angle towards the end that annoyed me in such a way where there was a savior complex in there, either by a white
Yeah.
person or an organization or something very PSE-ish at the end, like in such a way where, oh look, somebody came in and swooped in and saved the day in a manner where at the end of the day it wasn't talking about FGM in a way where we would say feminism comes to play. It's talking about poverty. I don't know, suffering porn or something.
Yeah, it was like trauma porn. Oh my goodness. It just felt like I think in the beginning or close to the beginning of the film, Stephanie goes on to explain the exact issue that is going to be discussed. And honestly, that explanation alone would have done it, right? It's
Yeah.
it's very horrible and grotesque how it comes across, which is good, I guess. But the movie just goes on to just we have this girl who is just like suffers it, and she's just like, oh, how disgusting and gross is she? Oh, isn't she gross? Because it's just like, all right, okay, I get it. Can we do something else? Like, are we gonna write a character? She didn't write. She wasn't a character. She was just the thing with the thing that they were
That we're
going to
all
be
supposed
talking
to
about.
look at with shock
There is there is a
and
film that reminds me of Dry that I also feel like it has a feminist theme, even though it's not at the forefront, but I think it's strong. It's Tune Kalani's Mami. I liked Mami because I thought the mother's character, I don't know if anybody can remember. It's quite old now. The structure is almost similar to Dry, but the difference is that whilst this guy tried to retrace his steps in such a way we see flashback of his younger self and lessons that he learned from his mother. She was the most, she thrived. She was, what's that thing, like tenacious, trying to provide for her only child. She was flawed extremely. She stole, she lied. I mean, she also tried to teach him how to do the right thing, even though she died, but in a way where it's not like, so it's just for his own, I mean, the advancement of whatever the plot was eventually. But I felt like, that character represents in a way the multifacetedness, that's not a word, of human being, right? Like, Nollywood has a way of either, when they want to eulogize like a mother's role, how she's perfect, right? But he tried to see both sides of her. At the end of the day, everything, not like justifying, at no bit was any of her actions, including when she had to lie, was justifying, what she had to do or whatever it is that she did for her child. But in such a way where at the core of it is that she's trying to survive, and so that a child would also survive. I don't know if anybody remembers the film.
Did not.
I
I was a
was
child.
no, Mommy is like 2012. I don't think he's that old.
Again, I was a child.
Oh,
At
sorry.
that time, I didn't.
Sorry, no, sorry, no, I was going to,
No. I just at that time I didn't used to watch like films with like actually caring about.
oh, okay, makes more sense.
Yeah.
Well, you look 16, so I was going to say something. 93 days, does it count? Because it's like a true life story, so does it count?
3 days.
I can't remember. Was Bimbo?
No, nice.
Yeah, Bimbo, I
guess it could because
I can't remember the film.
all we were just focusing on, but like the focus was just on, Dr. Adidevo's story, right?
All right.
So I guess that could count.
Okay.
I guess that could count, yeah. It was just a woman that was doing her job. And can I propose potentially Fourth Republic? I can't remember.
Yes. That's it. That's a flawed woman. I like that.
A flawed woman, yes, because she still did end up. It turns out she did do dodgy shit, and she still won the election. There was no comeuppance for being a bad woman. It was just,
I couldn't believe.
The series with
Love is War is
no
RMG and the other woman. What's her name? I love her. Dakore. I thought Dakore was normal.
Which one?
It's a legal series. I can't remember the name. Where they
Castle.
Yeah.
I guess from the episodes I saw, it just felt like legal drama.
Sorry, I couldn't get over the bad legal law.
I'm not a lawyer, so you can tell me that in court people can walk naked, and I will be like, fine. But
I don't know.
I just couldn't. I tried.
She was pretty well rounded.
All right. I feel like there's a difference between like a well-rounded female character, which is a good character, and a
feminist character.
Well, it was feminist in the way that they were both equal partners of the law firm and sort of both had.
And she even kicked him out, didn't she?
Yeah, so it was very, very, very much pro whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
Another movie that gets mentioned in the article is, I haven't seen this, I think Mr. C has seen this, so she can tell me, is Muna. Yeah.
It's just such a bad film. I don't even know if it was or what. It was just a bad film. It's a very bad film.
This was
a very bad film. It was like a fever dream.
Who's in it? I've never seen that.
I'm pretty sure there's sexual assault in there. And
there's sexual assault in the trailer.
In the trailer, yeah.
No, was it the one where she was fighting?
Yeah,
I think it was abroad. She went abroad to go and learn how to fight.
Not to be mistaken for the other one she was fighting called The Setup and The Setup.
No, I do remember this one because I remember when she was posting on her Instagram doing the fight.
Yes, bro.
Yeah.
And then they
back
now
then.
announce when you drop because
And then
That
the
was when Adeswa's acting became nonsense, Abi.
yeah, I think it was
we
the
blame
Sorry,
genesis
Maurice.
guy.
of genesis of a
Genesis
couple of
of it.
things. The
Yeah, badass. Yeah, just
yeah.
The Adeswa strong face. That's where that film came
dishonorable
from.
mention to the setup for a failed feminist film. Another dishonorable mention to Giacomo because while it was prep,
I'm
I did
pleased to announce I
enjoy.
never watched the Giacomo.
I mean, I feel like I would recommend it to you. I feel like you can take it.
I
I
think
don't
so
know,
too.
man. I love Kunle Remy, but I don't know if I love Kunle Remy that much.
No, no,
See, take a few shots, right? We'll send you the template for our Nollywood drinking game,
no.
and you'll have a trip. You enjoy yourself.
Hey, also, where else are you going to see someone twerking, a stripper twerking on the altar?
Yeah.
Where
I
else?
promise you won't see it in actual church.
Oh my god.
I've not been to all
Exactly.
Sorry,
churches.
Giacomo
I am
was.
actually seeing a video of somebody. Well, I don't know whether she's a stripper or not, but I've seen somebody talking for Jesus. A
Well,
video of somebody talking for Jesus.
in this scenario, there's no conflicting it. Yeah, this is a stripper.
This is a stripper. This is for sure a
She's
stripper.
she's in her she's not wearing church clothes.
Yeah, she's not twerking in church clothes, my
She's
G.
twerking as a stripper.
Yeah, she's in character.
On the altar.
Yeah. Also, there is an exploding man. So if you recommended because you
Don't
watched The
recommend.
Boys.
Don't.
My
It's
name is
okay. It's
Giacomo.
okay. I was just going to say a good feminist movie,
God,
and many of you are going to push back on me on this. Letters to a Stranger.
No,
I love it.
Nobody's going to
Okay,
watch that.
I'm not pushing back.
You know what? Nollywood Film
Even
Club is
if
that.
love letter to a stranger is not even feminist, I will agree that it is any genre. Okay.
Nollywood
Okay,
Film
look
Club
here.
is
It
back. We
is
have
the woman
Elizabeth and
character
Scott
is well
talking about
written,
Letters to a Stranger.
and
Film
it
Club
is
back.
about our decision, and the men respect our decision, and she's like also. So what else? Eh, The thing about like feminist movies is movies that explicitly what's it called, promote themselves as feminists will always in some way fall short because feminism is very different and very, very different for very different something. And there's always something to criticize. So Letters to a Stranger is a good feminist movie because it actually it centers the woman.
I will say
And
though,
it's
the women in
nice.
that film are very well written.
Yes, the
Exactly.
women. Yes.
I will say that they're very well written,
Victor
and especially
Agawa.
because they're on screen the most of the time.
Victor
And it's
Agawa did a
fun.
great job.
Yeah,
It's fun. So why not
Victor
Letters to
Agawa
a
did
Stranger?
Victor Gawa did a great job because one thing I like about the characters is okay. Let me take it back. Nollywood writers, no offense, to everybody, again, not generalizing, Emma Binu, is that the thing I've noticed is that in a bid to write something like Oyinkan mentioned, something feminist in quote, they tend to get to be very much on the nose, and then it's almost like the way Americans write. So that, again, not offense to all Americans, people come together like, oh, we want to write feminist, and then they write bad dialogue because those dialogue is like, we are women, we want empowerment in such a way where even you as a feminist, you're rolling your eyes, and I think where Letters to a Stranger excelled is unlike films like sorry, I'm about to mention another name. It's okay. Where in every second, I'm a woman, I'm this, I'm 30, I'm this, I'm that, I'm expected that, I'm this, I'm 30. Letters to a Stranger didn't do that. Letters to a Stranger had these women with real lives, with jobs. I mean, at least we knew that one of them had jobs. One was a full housewife. Again, there was no conversation explaining their life choices, right? There was nothing around that, just more like Genevieve's, that's Jemima's character. She's dealing with her boyfriend. Her boss noticed that she's taking on too much. Her boss even told her, go take a break. She goes to Lagos for a break or whatever. She's discussing her dreams and hope with a man in a way where we're not being told what society expects of her, even though our sister's character, I think you've been above for Beresima, mentioned it again, not in a way where it's over the top. We do understand it coming from this particular person because she's a full housewife, and she said, Jemima, you need to marry, you need to settle down. And then we have Evina Ibrahim's character said, oh, sort of like nobody expect like the conversations were so natural, like something my friends and I would have, in a way where Isoken was extremely unnatural. I don't know, because in every second is it's letting us know there is a societal issue. Again, both movies are feminists, but while one is extremely over the nose, I had to actually think, if when we mentioned the letters to I had to actually think about it, like, is it? I'm like, you know what? You're right. And it's nice to have films like that does something without it being over the top.
All right. If you want to
Like,
hear more
please,
about
who knows?
Letters to
I'm
Strangers
just
talk, you should listen to the female characters in Nollywood podcast again. There's a lot of praise for that film. But like, I don't want to cannibalize what or repeat even what we said in that episode. I would ask though, just quickly, Elizabeth. Someone's watched the old Domitilla. Would Domitilla count as
Yes,
Ooh,
it will.
yes.
Okay.
I
Yes,
forgot about it. Domitilla, definitely. Yes.
definitely. And more like, again, I don't know what happened to this new Domitilla, but the old Domitilla, except for that one bit where she went to church and asked for forgiveness, which is not a problem if you're Christian. It speaks so much to. I like that. At the crux of it is, because she's prostitute does not mean she deserves less. That is the entire theme of Domitilla. She was suspected because, and people just goes, oh yes, she killed this man because she's a prostitute. And at the heart of it is, people, she came out on top. Of course, she won the case, and I think he's really strong. He didn't do a lot of don't be a prostitute, and next time if you're a prostitute you die. They did put comeuppance for a prostitute dying, but it's a 96 film. By the end of the day, it's like she's prostituted, she's human, she's entitled to good representation from the lawyer, she's entitled to live in peace like every other person, without people like, oh yeah, she's prostitute, then she must be a killer. It's a good one.
all right, nice.
There's a
Okay.
Domitilla sequel.
Like we don't speak of
Did we
that.
watch it in film club?
We don't speak of that. It's going to drop soon, and we will not.
It's not out yet. Oh God.
It
Okay.
It came out in
it
It
came
cinema,
out in
was
right?
in
Nigerian
cinemas,
cinemas.
but it's not on streaming yet.
Gotcha.
All right. Okay. We can. I think did I interrupt Wayne's rant? Was there something you wanted to say before we go into
yes.
general?
So all these films, Domitilla and the other film, where can I've never seen. I'm like 16. I've never seen these films. I checked the other film. It was 2007. So I was quite young then. Are they on YouTube? Is there?
Yes,
They
Does
are
anyone
Letters
know?
they
to
are on
Letters to
YouTube,
a
yes,
Stranger is on
both.
YouTube, but it's in like 10 parts or something. Like it's
Yes, I
short.
saw
Don't
that
worry,
one. Is
you
there like
watch
a
it, you'll be
version that
fine.
I can watch normally without the 10 parts?
By there, it's not there. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You will just be
Okay.
moving smooth.
Okay. No, Alan, no, thank you.
Domitilla is also on YouTube. I did
Yeah,
watch
but
it
it's
again.
1996. Can I watch it?
You
I have
can watch it. You
okay. I
can.
have problems watching movies with like terrible editing and effects.
Trust me.
So,
Once you
That
start
one sounds
watching
like
it,
a you problem.
once you start watching it, once you start watching it, because of the story, you forget it.
okay, thanks.
All right.
I'm sorry, that sounded mean, but like there's certain things you just have to accept with like old Nollywood and just like grin and bear it.
No, it's
See,
fine. It's fine. It's fine. All right.
also the women of NFC take Letters to a Stranger very seriously.
You love it.
All right. Okay. Let's do quick summaries of. I guess rounding up. What are you guys hopeful for feminism in Nollywood? Is there a light at the end of this very dark tunnel? I would say, at least maybe Jade and Kemi doing some streaming movies. Maybe there might be light somewhere, but this is how we're rounding up. All right.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to on that. I haven't seen Jade write a female
Thank you. I
character.
was gonna say that too.
Like maybe the closest she's done is like the Sugar Sisters, because they were
Yeah.
chasing like a bag, literally,
Yeah.
not a man. But I haven't seen, because Brotherhood, Gangs of Lagos, the women in there were just. Remember, we had a running joke even when there were
Yeah.
like three kids chasing their
No.
dreams, and we're like,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
babe had a dream.
Yeah, no,
So maybe Kemi, maybe if she doesn't go the route of Cobb 2, if she can, or unless King of Boys 1 was lightning in a bottle. But I'm not holding out for Jade.
no, because the
Feels
reason why I said this, because whilst I believe someone like Kemi, that's like it's part of her blood, it's part of her DNA. It's kind of how Jordan Peele wants to really like write films with black leads. I think Kemi wants to tell stories where where women are like empowered and all of that. I think Jade is just generally a better writer and will incidentally write a female lead, and I'm hoping she's going to. Yes, you guys are right. I don't think I wouldn't say Shaka is a great feminist, a feminist representation, but I think she's very much capable of doing it. If she chooses to go that way, which just feels like eventually she will. All right, Vanessa.
Yeah, I'm scared for the future, and this isn't a. I'm sorry, I don't know how to be as optimistic as you guys are. There was a time when we used to say, "Oh, if women wrote women lies." I mean, a woman wrote "Come Online." What's the name of that film? I'm sorry, all I can know is the marketing tagline.
Come on, lad.
Hey you.
Hey
Hey
you.
you,
Hey
hey you, the
you.
name of the film. Yeah, hey you. A woman wrote Hey You. That's all I have to say. A woman wrote and directed Hey You, Abby. So I'm terrified because if men in Nollywood cannot write women and women in Nollywood cannot write women, who can write women? Shepe Angeli, is it Angeli that will come from upstairs, from the heavens, and come and write women for Nollywood? Because at this point, I don't know, man. Oh, well, I guess we saw a film like a few weeks ago. I guess Over the Bridge has a pretty good female character, but I don't know if I would call it feminist, which is the thing, right? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. A lot of women in Nigeria are still unlearning a lot of internalized misogyny, and I guess that's very apparent in how um, women are written and portrayed in Nollywood. We're still doing the work. And I don't know if the people who are making films in Nollywood are doing the work to decenter men in women's stories, to write women who are multifaceted as women really are, to write women who are wholly human and not just cardboard papers or plot devices to help move along a man's story. I don't know. I'm not as hopeful as you guys are. I guess what we see is what we will get.
I guess, and like to say what Vanessa was saying, really, is that there's not a lot you can do in the society that's the way that it is. You can't draw from an empty well, and we are very much have an empty well, and people drawing from it, I think, are doing phenomenal things because they are up against multiple things there as they try to write these stories, which is, first of all, they are trying to tell the stories that do exist, and the stories that do exist, unfortunately, are largely misogynist. Like, let's look at how this week has gone, and the woman who just like has been crying on the internet because she's homeless and her husband has taken over, everything like that. These are the stories that exist. It's so it's hard to then expect writers to tell those stories or not tell those stories and instead try and sell us fan fiction. And if they were to tell sort of like a overtly feminist story, it would very much be fiction in the Nigerian landscape of things. And then that also raises the question, the audience. Like, they're still trying to sell movies, and I know how the Nigerian audience will react to a rah feminist movie, it wouldn't be pretty. It probably wouldn't even get shown in cinemas. First of all, like let's start there.
It's crazy because like the audience is basically women. And it's not, and it's the kind of women I don't know, but I feel like a lot of the audiences are women, and Kema Adetipa has done it. I don't see why. I really don't see why it can't be done. But I definitely share your pessimism.
Well, on the flip side, let's look at, for example, The Other Woman, that movie that was advertised, that came earlier.
Yeah, Sharon Moja. Did it do well?
The Modern
No, it didn't.
Woman.
I don't think it did.
Did it come out?
The Other Woman, that Sharon Moja, that movie about a happy marriage that gets destroyed when the wife starts hanging with a coven of poisonous feminists.
Did it come out? Did that film come out?
It did come out.
Oh, it did.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yes,
I'm so glad that it came out and I heard nothing.
Yeah. So
I did not. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Wayne's rants. Do you wanna?
Yeah, my hand has been up since. Okay. I want to share in Mr. C's optimism, but I don't think we will see it how we think we will see it. I don't think we'll ever see something overtly feminist. Because like I said, I think our society in Nigeria is very inherently misogynistic. And so a film that is overtly feminist will hit the audience like a slap, right? And I think what we'll see more is, and what I hope for more is more women stories, right? Like we've said, women are human beings. They're not story plots. They're not plot devices. Sorry, they're not things that you use to make the film have a lot of characters. Right, they exist, and so what I hope, especially for the women characters, is because I don't think I will be able to write female characters as well. Hopefully, the female writers in the industry write actual female characters, and slowly, like we've said, the article says it's that cinema shapes the mentality of people, and slowly, the more we begin to see women as human beings, the more we will get ready for an overtly feminist film, right? So slowly, not soon, but hopefully, with the way the world is going, we will be able to see something like that.
And the idea of slowly is kind of why I'm not optimistic, because look at where we are now and how slowly we have been trying to introduce this idea, where 10 years ago, when his wives on strike, 2016, we are still selling the idea that the acceptable form of protest is either in the kitchen or in the bedroom. How quickly are we going to progress from there, really? Like, I just don't see it happening as quickly as it needs to be impactful, because by the time we get to the next stage of feminism, everybody else would have moved far away from it. And then at that point, again, we are still behind. And so what are we doing?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. Ichana called me optimistic. I'm not optimistic because that's two out of how many people, of which I don't.
That's more optimistic than my zero.
Kemi makes movies once every 2-3 years, and then Jade makes films a little bit more frequently, but the ones that she might make might not be female centered, or so. Yeah, I'm not. We're talking about maybe we're getting one every 2 years.
5 years.
If I'm lucky, I don't know how optimistic that be. So yeah, but there is something to say with again, whether we're going forward, using Domitila as an example, the original versus the remake that came out. I think it was last year. Yeah, it's like, are we going forward? Yeah,
we're regressing. We're definitely
regressing. Vanessa mentioned in the females and female characters in Nollywood podcast. I think that was one of the things, like that female characters have been kind of getting worse in a lot of areas and in a lot of ways. So I don't know whether it's because we're getting more of them. It's probably that,
No,
well,
I really
films
think what's
are being
happening.
female centered, and then they're also bad writers. So
I
like,
think what's happening is that I want to say that the technique being used, I think what's okay, let me rephrase. I think what's happening is they feel like if they are on the nose, I don't know why they think, why writers or whoever, producer or whatever, think or believe that if they have female characters tell us about their struggle and then keep telling us about their struggle, because if you compare, the older Domitilla to this Domitilla, you will notice that there is a pattern, and the pattern starts from, let's say, Olotire. From Olotire, that whole ordeal with Olotire, and then Glamour Girls, the whatever, the part two, the remake, the refix. And then, so you'll notice that there is a recurring theme that I feel like they believe they have to replicate, right? So they want to replicate this prostitute who, suffering and suffering. So it's a way, I think what's happening is they cannot balance sentiment. They want to make the audience sad for the sake of shock value or just to sell film. And when your moral value does not tally with what you're writing and what you think your output should be, you get stories like Glamour Girls, Olotiri, and whatnot, right? You end up with stories that seemingly seem feminist, but at the end of the day, it seems also like prop in such a way where it's again for gawking rather than than telling stories. Sorry to pull us back. I don't know if you guys have discussed this, but I would like to make reference to how Hollywood started. I don't want you to do the word start. When Hollywood started having that, or in the 1970s, towards, then we have the feminist wave and all that. Certain stories that it started telling were, female, like centered, but they were picking stories and telling it in way that look at Kramer versus Kramer, for example. When it came out in the 70s, the idea behind that film is to look at how motherhood with women, and women who have left their jobs behind to be full-time mother, and they really don't want to be stay-at-home moms, just so that the man can. I think like when Hollywood went through their own phase in which they still have like more feminist stories, like the first Stepford Wives, when they have this kind of stories, I think that by the 90s, they still experienced some blockbusters. But at the center of it, when we start having things like Pretty Woman, is they went from trying to show societal issues. They've done that in the 70s. In 1980s, they're putting women in the forefront, women doing things differently. You can also see the difference in, A Star Is Born, all the different remakes. You have the first remake, which will be misogynist, up until Barbara Streisand's version, and then you have Lady Gaga's version, right? You see that if you watch all of these stories, you see the progress. Barbara Streisand's version was more on the nose because, again, during that time was the feminists, movements in the West. But then you see that Lady Gaga's version is a bit more subtle, and I feel like that's what's been happening in a way. But ours didn't have that flow. While we had people like Kenneth Nebwe making things like Glamour Girls, we had people like Amaka Igwe make films like Violated, in which the woman character is human, just human. She's not a saint, she's not that, she's just a woman trying to make a living, right? We have people like that but I think at the end of the day, and we also have people like Ellen Ukpabi, who thinks once you're a prostitute, you deserve to go and die. The stories converge in 2000 to just be, if you're a bad woman, you're going to deserve a bad death. Even though my favorite is market seller Omotola. But anyways, I feel like rather than progress, we are getting our values. So you have having people whose value don't tally with the stories they're trying to tell. Let me just put it that way. They probably are not feminists in real lives, and that's why they can't separate feminist stories from gawking for audience. And so I'm also not optimistic. I'm with Otters here. I'm not optimistic, really. That's it. Thank you.
So specifically, though, I think we're regressing because, and I'm going to use Mr. and Mrs. as an example, and the second story specifically. That's not the first time we've seen a career woman story told in Nollywood. Like prior to 2012, like as from the point where women kind of working 9 to 5 became prominent as early as the 90s, down to the early movies in the 2000s, stories of career women were told. And it was always the same thing where it would destroy their home. But the way it was told then was always these women who had the careers and were the breadwinners would keep their husbands at home and like subjugate them actively, like, you know, be mean to them, go out and cheat, or just insult them, make them the cleaner, sort of the, you know, just all of the things housewives would be doing that is apparently insulting for a man to do, um, is what they would be doing. And then there would also be the added aspect of the disrespect where she's either yelling at them or uh actively, you know, messing with somebody else on the outside that the man is sort of aware of. And that's how these stories were told then, where a working woman is a woman who is cheating on you and a woman who will insult you. And so when at the end of those movies, the women got their quote unquote comeuppance, it was always sort of palatable because she has done all of these evil things to deserve it. And we see Mr. or Mrs. here, 2012, supposedly modern movie. She's not doing any of that. And the very thing they're pushing back on is just hardworking, nothing else. She's not insulting him. She's not subjugating him to any menial work. In fact, his only sort of household duty there seems to be dropping off and picking up his kids because it's just convenient for the time he closes at 3 p.m. Um, and still, they're pushing back on the idea that this woman has a career that she cares for. And so when he cheats with his house help, who is possibly underage, it's sort of deserved. Like, why? How? Like, that is for me just like a straight decline from where we're starting from. And if that's how we're going, I, it, I don't see the stairs we're going to climb up anywhere. I just don't.
Otas, I'm so sorry. I know we are rounding up and I'm not supposed to talk. I just wanted to say, because I just watched Mr. and Mrs., that I think we may be misunderstanding a bit about the story, this the part B of the story. First of all, the film tried to paint the woman as subjugating her husband. There was a scene where when she left with Incest character and he came out and then she tells her husband to go in.
Come on, that's not a real thing. Like, let's be serious. Like,
No, no,
why can you not tell your partner to go get your phone if you
no,
talk to a
no.
friend for a second?
Wait,
Like,
no, no,
in
no.
comparison to yelling at your husband and making him cook and clean and telling him he can't go out and if he doesn't have any money. Like, we've seen those movies where the women who work are actively
True.
antagonistic. So I don't think there's any comparison to be made there that she told her to go pick up her phone. That's a
No, no,
regression if that is.
it wasn't. It wasn't the fact that she told him. It was the fact that it was a conversation she had with Incest character. I was even talking. It wasn't the thing she did
Yeah,
because
I remember the conversation.
I also think
yes,
that, like, I think what the movie wanted to do there was actually the thing that was the humiliating thing was that he was just a house husband. I think that's what
But
the
he
movie.
was.
but he had a job. He had a
Yeah,
He had
job.
a
He wasn't a
job.
house husband.
I know. I'm saying the movie is going. Look at what you can become if the woman is the breadwinner. You'd be the
Yeah.
person doing taking care of the children
But
and
he's
doing
not.
the this and the doing the that.
And that's the problem with this movie because we've seen actual representations of that before. And I can't think of one right now, but I know the movie I'm thinking about where this woman who is the breadwinner is actually subjugating her husband. Like, even you as a feminist, you're like, your own is too much. Why are you doing that? And
Remember
we've
Ernest
seen
to be
those
washing
movies.
somebody's pants.
Yeah, exactly. Like where they're washing their underwear, not that because they can't hire maids, but because they have decided that they're the breadwinner, so the men have to do these things. And we've seen those movies throughout time happen. And when it's justified that they're bad people for having a job, even you as the audience, you're sort of like, that's clearly a terrible person.
Hmm.
But Mr. and Mrs. is selling this idea. She's not a bad person. She doesn't do any, like, she asked him to, hey, I left my phone. Can you help me go get it while I talk to my friend for a second? And then Inse is like, why are you treating him like that? And I'm like, why are you treating him like what? Like, what did she do?
what is the issue that we're having a problem with right now? Like, I cannot ask my husband or my partner to please help me go look for a phone that I may have left inside so I can talk to my friend for a minute.
I don't know whether the actor didn't want to come across too harsh, but I certainly feel like it was written that way, that she thought a little lower of his. It was almost like reversing it, like sometimes the way a man who is more on the misogyny side would look like a woman, like, and it would almost be like if you imagine you asked, if a man went to ask his wife to go get something, and then somebody asks you, why are you asking your wife to go get you the thing? You'd be like, what do you mean?
No, but
like it's her.
I think
But
what
he
happened,
doesn't say that.
I think they put some sentences in there, right, to do it without they didn't show it. They just had her say, "Oh, I have him where I want him."
And that's fair. I do hear that. Remember that part, but that just seemed forced into the story, not an actual part of the story. Because what we do see is that she comes home, she asks about the kids' well-being. She's not even expecting him to know. She's expecting the person she hired to know. And even when the shopping is being decided, she's deciding that with the maid, and all she's saying is ask him for money. Like, even in terms of providing, she's still pushing some of that providing back to her husband. And so that feels like a big decline from how the story started being told to how they're being told, like, as far as that movie goes.
Yeah, I think that film wouldn't be, if you were making Mr. and Mrs. today, you wouldn't make that though. I think the industry has grown a bit, so I wouldn't say we're completely going back. We're going backwards. I think.
I remember
nobody, nothing again. It's okay. I'm tired of all of you guys.
I haven't said anything yet.
It's so sad. It's very sad, honestly.
No, as in I'm saying my kind of my friend. I'm not even talking about. I'm not talking about Mr. and Mrs. I just remembered there was this movie that Rukadi did.
I'm sorry. I can't. I can't do it anymore. Can't do it anymore. This was supposed to be a quick, hey, what do you think about this? This was supposed to be a, hey, what do you think about the future of feminism in Nollywood? That was what this was supposed to be. It's lasted a little bit. Thank you, though, I know this is the subject everybody could speak on for. Hey, if you want to tweet it using Twitter, is happy to retweet. Any sentiments? If you want to do a thread, do the thread. But yeah, thanks for all coming on. I did really appreciate it. I thought this was going to be an interesting conversation, and I think it really was. And I hope it did. At least it was interesting for the speakers. We will discuss. I think Madam something, the origins, Madam Koi, Lady Koi, I can't remember, something Koi Isha next week.
We'll Nigerian this man.
I can't remember. I don't know. I can't remember the way it's titled. I can't remember if it's actually titled properly. I know Lady Koi. Yeah, but we're going to be discussing that. It comes out on the 31st, so that's Tuesday. Mm-hmm. We'll drop on Tuesday. We'll see how well that character is written, and we'll discuss it on Sunday.
I just want to say, Netflix has done horrible marketing for this.
Yeah. Well,
I don't celebrate Halloween, but they should have marketed this as a Halloween film. I don't understand who was in charge of marketing this. I don't know.
Should have dropped this weekend as opposed to on.
Yep, or supposed to Tuesday, and they should have gone all out. They should have sent out things, gone to secondary schools, made this whole thing a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, well, anyway, but maybe who knows? We'll pick up steam and favor. Let's see on Sunday. Thanks everybody for joining. We'll see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed listening and would like to join live, just follow us on Twitter at Iroko Critic and join us every Sunday 6 p.m. West African time on our spaces.